Good evening, my fellow Americans. This is your president speaking, and today is Foreign Affairs Wednesday. And there's the problem with Foreign Affairs Wednesday is apparently the world is actually a bit more stable than the United States of America. And so we have actually had a little bit of difficulty finding content for today that has to literally do with things happening outside of the United States. But also the United States has done stuff in just the past 24 hours, literally just the past 24 hours from yesterday, which was U.S. Policy Tuesday, that we're actually going to have to cover it. So with that being said, something I want to really talk about with this bill, and I because president, right? Because we are talking about the United States of America from a position of authority, from a position of leadership, understanding what it means to give a tax break to the billionaire class in the United States of America. That's what we hear in the media. Hello, Anna. Sorry. Hello to everybody that's watching. What does it mean when the media says, do you believe billionaires should exist? Do you believe it's fair that billionaires pay so much in taxes? Do you believe that these tax cuts for the billionaires are unfair, unjustified, XYZ? And then you find out, well, it's $3 trillion tax breaks to the billionaires. That's a shit ton of money. Right? To the billionaires. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds like the Hispanics, the blacks, the white folk, the Asians, the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, right? It sounds like an honest-to-God demographic of equal or greater weight to existing demographics, right? It would be like saying the Italians. They're now considered white, but back even 40 years ago, 50 years ago, that wasn't the case, right? So when we say the billionaires, what are we actually talking about? Like, who are the billionaires? What does it mean when we say the billionaires? And why are the billionaires getting $3 trillion in tax breaks? I'm sorry, it's not just the billionaires, it's also corporations. To be fair. So when we break down a nation by demographic, it's usually like Pacific Islander, African, South American, Central American, Asian, Black, and Latino, right? Which I guess would be the Central American and South American. So it's really like 6, I think, 5, 6, depending on what report you're looking at, right? So there's 6 major demographics: white, Black, Latino. I think Native American is actually one, and Asian/Pacific Islander. It's usually something along those lines. Maybe there's a 6th, maybe there's a 7th. So we are treating billionaire as a demographic. Now, in each of the ones that I just mentioned, to include indigenous Native Americans still comprise several million people in the United States of America. I think it's around 4 million is what it's typically referred to as. About 4 million people are indigenous in the United States of America, living on reservations, are recognized as tribes like the Sioux, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, stuff like that, right? But they're like the smallest demographic that's typically represented in the United States, despite, this being their land. They are the smallest demographic because Manifest Destiny and the original genocide that was committed on this continent by the United States of America. But that notwithstanding, even if we took the Jewish population of the United States of America and just did it by that, Jewish population in America is 7.5 million people, which is larger than the entirety of indigenous Americans who, again, are indigenous to this continent. And I want to know what the real number is now. So according to the IWGIA, it's weird because AI says it's 9 million, which is why I didn't read that number off. And then this one says as of 2016, there were 567 tribal entities recognized with a population of around 6.6 million, either alone or in combination with another ethnic identity, and 2.5 million identify as purely Native American or Alaska Native. And I think that's where I was getting my smaller number from. So mea culpa. Let's just round up. Let's call it, because it's been 9 years, right? So population growth. Let's call it 4 million who are just solely Alaskan Native or Native American. And let's round up and call that 10 million who have Native American genetics, for lack of a better word. It's still one of the smallest demographics in the country, right? And it's in the millions, but it's one of the smallest demographics in the country. And I have to emphasize this because when we talk about tax cuts to the wealthy, tax cuts to the billionaires getting this, billionaires getting that, billionaires buying our elections, billionaires influencing this, billionaires doing that, billionaires. That's not millions of people, folks. That's not even hundreds of thousands of people. That's not even tens of thousands of people. It's not even thousands of people. It's not hundreds of people. It's actually 83. Less than 100. It's scores. Unironically, 80 and several people. So, $3.3 trillion in tax cuts are going to 83 individuals and corporations. 83 individuals bought our elections. 83 individuals are influencing our national, state, and local politics so egregiously that we are suspending habeas corpus, that we are defunding Medicare and Medicaid, that we are not raising wages, that we are not engaging in rent freezes, that we are literally getting into trade wars with foreign countries, that we are literally financing, aiding and abetting, fueling, and supplying a genocide. We are financing and expanding an actual secret military police, ICE, and building concentration camps within our own walls, borders, and then enslaving the migrants who we are now deeming illegal by denying them their legal access that they had to begin with, fining them over $1,000 a day and enslaving them to debt whilst being in these concentration camps because billionaires, 83 fucking individuals, can't be bothered to pay even 0.1% taxes on their shit. So, whatever we do, when we talk about we the people, the 99%, again, there are only 83 billionaires in the entirety of the United States of America. 83! That's not even 100. There's around, 3,000 total billionaires in the world? I got rid of the Google search again. How many total billionaires globally? 3,323 worldwide as of 2023, which is an increase of 247. Their combined wealth is 16.1 trillion. Again, 3,000 people out of 8 billion on this fucking planet are literally driving us to climate disaster, international conflict, genocide, poverty, food scarcity, water scarcity, air quality destruction, lack of access to healthcare and education, so that they can just have more. 3,000 people globally, 83 of which are in the United States of America. So I want to preface that everything that we are talking about politically on this stream, moving forward, just and in the past, obviously, because again, policy is literally crafted by billionaires who either run the trillion-dollar corporations or otherwise influence legislation through backdoor deals. It is literally 83 individuals who are at the epicenter of that, are at the pinnacle of that process. 83, 83, 10. I don't actually know how to say 83 in Spanish. I think in French it's 3 20 20 20. You say it several times. It's weird, but actually I also don't know how to say it in Latin. But it's insane. Okay, it's actually insane. 83 individuals in the United States of America have so much power and control over our government, over 330 million people, that they are literally able. 83. Okay, thank you. There are 83 billionaires, putos, in charge of this fucking country, dominating this country's politics, economic policy, fiscal policy, social policy, to literally undermine everything this country might have once stood for. And I'm not even going to argue that we were a white supremacist country from the offset and that we committed genocide within 3 years of our fucking liberation from the British Empire, and that we were already treating a large part of our population as literally 3/5 because we didn't actually get rid of slavery, and women didn't actually have the right to vote, and neither did most white men because they weren't landowners. So, I'm not saying we were ever a good country or that we started off on the right foot. What I am saying is that there was an ideal that was implied with this Constitution, and that over time has been built into this Constitution because people were like, yeah, we need to get better and do better, and therefore are gonna do this X, Y, and Z thing. This administration, led by a billionaire, one of 83 billionaires, I might add, so the other 82 are basically in cahoots with this motherfucker, are literally dismantling everything that we have worked for over the past 250 years. So when we talk about billionaire tax cuts, this class of people, understand that a class includes Caucasian, Asian, Pacific Islander, Latino, Black, African, Muslim, right? Arabic, Middle Eastern, African, South American, Central American, right? When we talk about classes of people, when we talk about demographics, we are usually talking about thousands upon hundreds of thousands or millions of people at a time. This class of entity, this class, this subset of humanity consists of 83 fucking people. And they are the ones that our 435 Congress members and 100 senators and this president, as well as 9 Supreme Court justices and every motherfucker working for them, are working in concert to service hand over foot by providing them with that $3 trillion tax break, more incentives, less regulation, less oversight. 83 people are benefiting from the entire Constitution, federal government, and for the most part, state level governments and local governments as well. 83 people have so much power and influence that they are benefiting from an institution, from a process, from a concept, from an idea that is meant to serve the needs of, as of today, over 330 million people. This country serves 83 instead of the 330 million. This isn't the 99% anymore. This isn't even the 99.9. What even is the percentage? I don't actually know. 83 divided by 330 million. So that's 2.5 times 10 to the negative 7th. So that's what? 0.06025. I'm not even sure what that percent would be. But that's like point 6 zeros. I have to actually type this out so I can visualize it. 0.60. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then there's another digit. 2515 repeating infinitely. So that would be thousandth, 10,000th, 100,000th, millionth, 10 millionth. So here's a concept. The people who are literally dominating our national politics, our societal direction, our everything that is definitive of this country is literally less than 1 part per million of this country. Less than 1 part per million of this country, which makes sense, right? Because there's 330 millions and there's 83 billionaires. So it would make sense that it would be about 1/4 of a millionth of the fucking population. 1/4 of a part per million. That's the kind of shit like where we start talking about what kind of chemicals are in the water, like how much lead is constituted as too much lead in the water. It's parts per million. And it's like 5 or 10, 15 parts per million lead in the water is enough to like start poisoning a society. Or how much lead is allowed to be in food, or how much arsenic is allowed to be in food, which again, we're talking about fucking arsenic, which is a known poison and carcinogen, right? We're talking about parts per million in our food and our drinks and our water and our air are regulated because it is known to be cancerous or poisonous or somehow deadly. And we have less than parts per million billionaires in our country who are literally killing us by directing our government to enact policies that can and will harm us, can and will kill us by deregulating all of our safety nets, all of our checks and balances, the actual regulations to our food, water, beverages, air quality, actual drinking water, the land that we use to cultivate and live on. Like this is, I cannot stress enough, despite the nerdy numbers here, and 17 minutes into our stream, that we are being devastated by a statistical anomaly worth of people who have an exorbitant amount of resources compared to the rest of us, and therefore control. Like this is beyond like the physics quandary of like a large system being withheld on a very thin base and a very thin foundation is bound to collapse. Like this is less than 1 per million, right? There are 8 million people in New York City proper, and in the entire metro of New York City, what did we just say yesterday? It was like 19 million. So picture the entirety of New York City reduced down to 5 people. 4 people, because it's less than 1/4. Actually, it's slightly more than 1/4. So let's stick with the 5. Imagine if every person in the New York City metro area disappeared. Every single person in the New York City metro area disappeared, except for 5. But they held literally all the wealth. Literally. Statistically enough wealth to be considered all of it. Right? 90% of everything is statistically enough to say that the remaining 10% has zero impact on what that remaining 90% does. Period. Like there is no means in which to influence 90% of something. Right? If a gorilla is at 90% strength, you are still going to get ripped in half if you try and fight it. If a gorilla is at 10% strength, you might survive. Okay? So imagine 5 people in New York City dictate everything about New York City. Everything. from the cost of living, the cost of groceries, the affordability of mass transit, whether or not it even exists, whether your drinking water will have lead in it, whether the air that you breathe will have any sort of regulations or stipulations to it, whether the food will be regulated at all, tracked to be told like, oh, you bought a sandwich, well, it has to, whatever's in the sandwich has to be said, to include allergens. Imagine if those 5 people just said, no, we're not going to have allergens anymore. We're not going to inform you. So now people are dying because of nut allergies, fish allergies, whatever have you. Those 5 people have an unprecedented amount of control over what happens in New York City. They're not elected. They are not elected, but they control every facet of your city. That is literally what is happening here in the United States of America because of 83 individuals. It is the equivalent of 5 people dominating the entirety of New York City. Which, I mean, that tracks, right? Because 19 million times 30, right? 30 times 5 is 150, so that's too much. So 5 times 20 would be 100. That's still too much. So actually 4 would be closer. I'm sorry, 4 would be closer. So 4 people would be controlling everything of New York City without regulations, without any accountability, without any checks or balances. Because they can buy and sell New York City and every ounce of leadership that's within it. Many, many, many times over. So, with that understood, with that premise being stated, forget 8647. It needs to be 8683, right? We need to talk about something like our movement has to center around the fact that there are 83 billionaires calling all of the shots in the United States of America. I'm not a very good propagandist. Anna has her moments. I have like every once in a while I'll say something witty, but that's not propaganda. I leave it to you. But we need to craft 83 as the enemy. 83 is the enemy. 83 is against me. Me versus 83. I don't fucking know. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm really shitty at propaganda. But we need to craft a message centering around 83 being the actual fucking problem. All right. So 22 minutes in. Let's cover some foreign policy. Evidently, Trump.
Let's talk about the foreign policy front here. The president announced yesterday Israel has agreed to necessary conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire deal with Hamas. We know Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to visit Washington next week. Could this ceasefire actually happen?
Well, at the end of the day, this is going to be in the hands of Hamas right now to make up the final decision. There is yet, as you see, no response from Hamas at this time. The president said that Israel has agreed to the terms of the ceasefire right now. In effect, without knowing the specifics here, we know that the president has long been pushing for an agreement that would bring home the hostages still kept in Gaza right now, said to be dozens, about 50 at this time. Unclear how many of them are still living. And the Gazan people would benefit, the president has insisted, by access to more resources, more aid that's needed after more than 50,000 Gazans have lost their lives since October 7th, several years ago now, where Israelis and others were slaughtered when Hamas entered into southern Israel at the time. We know that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, the president's special envoy Steve Witkoff, had met with one of Netanyahu's deputies just yesterday ahead of this announcement. And we do separately know, as you said, that Bibi Netanyahu will be coming here to the White House on Monday of next week. We've also now learned that many hostage families have requested that the prime minister bring them with him when he visits with President Trump early next week.
We thank you for watching.
Okay, so it sounds like a whole lot of nothing burger with no actual commitments from the victim country, because the victim country is desperately saying, we will actually dismantle and give you everything you've ever asked for. Stop murdering us. And Israel is saying no. And America is saying, well, we're going to do whatever Israel tells us to do, because AIPAC, although not affiliated with Israel, is affiliated with Israel and owns every single member of our federal administration. both Democrats and Republicans, and again is aided, funded by, and influenced by no few of those 83 billionaires that I just mentioned. So, not good news. Of course, I guess the idea that the ceasefire is being discussed at all is good news, but the next one's Hamas, right? So
I gave it a shot, and I came in and had the procedure done.
Of course, we're going to have to watch full 15 seconds of this here video. Also, fun fact, evidently, Twitch has a real funny way of promoting videos. If you don't have at least 4 videos, you don't even make it onto the recommended page based on your tags. So that's very interesting. Something else that's very interesting is that our email notification thing hasn't been working for anybody, to include moderators like Ana Litiosa and Pop Culture Geek, and I believe Blake. Those have been our ride or dies since day one. And the only reason why they know that I'm live is because they know I'm German and I'm exceedingly punctual. So if I say I'll do something at 7, it'll be 7 on the dot. That being said, I find it very interesting, and it explains why we had such a good viewership yesterday. It's because we were actually on the recommended for you, and we met the minimum threshold of 4 viewers.
Begin with breaking news, and Hamas has released a statement saying it's reviewing a new U.S. proposal for a temporary ceasefire with Israel in Gaza. It says our mediator brothers are making intensive efforts to bridge the gap between the parties, reach a framework agreement, and begin a serious round of negotiations. We are acting with a high sense of responsibility and are conducting national consultations to discuss the proposals we have received from our mediator brothers, with the aim of reaching an agreement that guarantees an end to the aggression, the withdrawal, and the urgent relief of our people in the Gaza Strip.
And I mean, again, I'm not... What kills me about this entire situation is we've been covering this situation since we began streaming. Literally since we've begun streaming and actually started streaming with a purpose. As of last year, when did we start? Was it June something, or was it April something? Either which way, we started in the spring or May. May? Awesome. See, this is why you're the moderator and I'm the politician. So May of last year, we started streaming, and one of the first things we kept covering was Palestine. Now, maybe not to the same degree that we are doing it now, maybe not to the same structure that we are doing it now, right? But this is devastating that we have been covering this for over a year. Obviously, there was a break in our stream between then, but that the coverage has gone from, hey, this is still a problem, and this is still not great stuff that's happening. Rafah, for instance, that's not okay. That's war crimes. They are literally intentionally bombing hospitals and airports and residential areas and schools. To now, we are still streaming. We are still talking about Palestine, but from the perspective of they are on the brink of mass starvation. It went from 2.3 million people to 1.8 million people, and yet we're only talking about 80,000 confirmed deaths. The math ain't mathin'. And somehow public opinion still is against Palestine and Hamas, which Hamas is both the terrorist group defending themselves, right? Defending the civilians who are literally being starved to death. And Hamas is also the political entity that governs Palestine. And Hamas, regardless of the political versus the military version of it, both have said, we will dismantle everything and give you everything that you have literally asked for. Stop murdering us. And it's literally right there. I'm not making this shit up. It is their own fucking language.
Well, those comments come as Israel intensifies its attacks across Gaza, killing more than 40 people. The strikes were hours after.
And this is the thing. Israel is killing Palestinians at aid stations relentlessly. Literally, people are waiting in there with their bowls or whatever and are getting shot like it's open season. This is insane.
Donald Trump said that Israel had agreed to the conditions for a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made his first comment since Trump's proposal was made public, vowing to eliminate Hamas, saying, quote, "We're not going back to that. It's over." Well, let's bring in Noor O'Day for more on this. She's in Amman, Jordan. Noor, let's start with Hamas's statement. Any indication as to what they are going to do, how they feel about the ceasefire announced by Donald Trump?
Well, the statement fully, I think it serves several purposes for Hamas. On the one hand, it acknowledges the efforts of the mediators, Qatar and Egypt. But on the other, it is attempting to buy a little bit of time in referencing national consultations. There's a lot of pressure that is being applied, including the threats by Donald Trump that if Hamas does not accept this, things will get much worse, not better.
So how do things get worse? For Hamas, for Palestinians, right? Because apparently, according to Israel and the United States and Europe, everybody in Palestine who exists is essentially Hamas, right? Oh yeah, there was a brief 2-week window where there was an ounce of sympathy for the starving children, the dying mothers and elderly that were being just bombarded on our media as they were being starved to death. There was about 2 weeks of sympathy, and then Israel attacked Iran, and then Israel attempted to do a false flag attack in the United States, and yet they're still our fucking ally. I don't know. I don't understand this. If you're the president of the United States of America and your ally betrays you so egregiously that they conspired to commit an act of terror on your country, within your borders, on your sovereign soil, to then blame it on another sovereign country so that you blame them and go to war with them, but that country, the one that was being targeted, antagonized, was the one that actually warned you, i.e. your adversary said, hey, we're your adversary, you know we're your adversary, and I'm letting you know that your ally is going to try and do this thing on your sovereign ground to blame us for it. And we want you to know we had no part of this. This is not our circus. This is not our monkeys. Because if we're going to come for you, we're going to tell you we're coming for you, and you're going to know we came for you, right? This is your ally instigating violence against us. We don't want the violence. Because if we did, we would have brought it, right? That's what Iran said. Iran has said repeatedly, we do not want the violence, but fuck around and you will find out. So as president, what should I do as a representative of my people, my country, my little borders that were violated by an alleged ally? I don't care if it was Canada, France, Spain, Germany, Sweden. Any fucking country that would have attempted to engage in a false flag attack on U.S. soil should have diplomatic relations immediately ended, just done, and military action taken against them. Legal, sure, fine, yes, legal, diplomatic, international courts, Hague, tribunals, shit too, but you were going to engage in a terroristic event on American soil? Nah, you're getting 1 or 5 battalions of Marines, of soldiers, of airmen, of Navy marching down your fucking throat for literally engaging in an act of unsanctioned war, i.e. preemptive strikes, which are not protected in international law. You engaged in a military action against me, or attempted to, which violated not only international law, but our literal alliance. I don't understand how Israel can commit and violate alliances like this and they're still treated as the victim? As something that's trustworthy? No. Diplomatic relations would have ceased. I would have expelled every single Israeli industry leader, citizen. I would have literally said, you're going to do this to us? Get the fuck out of my country. You have 48 hours before I deem you a terroristic threat on American soil. Because what in the actual fuck? So APAC, if you're watching, AFDL or ADL, whatever, there's every single 3-letter or 4 or 5-letter acronym that begins with A and ends with C or L typically belongs to APAC, ADL, or Israel in some form or fashion, as it turns out. So if you're listening, if this somehow comes across your radar, hope and pray that I never, ever actually achieve this. Because your days will be numbered in the most biblical ways imaginable. You will be arrested. You will be arraigned. Evidence will be seized. All of your assets, all of your data will be seized. And it will be protected. And it will be sent to the international criminal courts. You will go before a tribunal for international war crimes and crimes against humanity. And you will hang. Because I will go out of my way to ensure that you do. So as long as we're clear on that, I think we can carry on with the rest of the stream here. Speaking of autocracy and fuckery in general, I'm going to leave this with you here.
Autocrats come to power. There's a 10-step.
Let's watch this real quick. I need a snack.
Step 9. So step 1, you have a free and fair election, but it's the last time. Because once that person wins, they don't intend to let anybody else or anyone else take the power that they have amassed for themselves or for their ticket. Second thing they do is that they exceed the realms of executive power. So you see a bunch of executive orders coming out claiming all kinds of powers that a president doesn't hold. Number 3, they then take the competing versions of power and try to either make them complicit or neuter them. So you have a Congress that basically has forgotten they got a job. And then you have a judiciary that's either complicit or neutered.
So remember how I said that, we're not just following in the Nazi footsteps, but they're following us when we were, massacring and committing genocide against indigenous Americans. And now we are following the autocracy handbook again. And I said that we were well past step 1, that we're on step whatever of 10. The 10 wasn't just an arbitrary number. There's literally 10 steps to autocracy. And there are 10 steps in both to achieving autocratic power and then what the Nazis did with that power. And that's also 10 steps. And it condenses some of the autocracy as part of those 10 steps to go from achieving the power and Auschwitz, right? So Auschwitz would be the final solution shit, right? Autocracy achieved, now the consolidation, the persecution of political opposition, dissenters, full-on autocratic nightmare, just nightmare fuel shit, and then the actual genocide of the Jewish population, and then which World War II and all that fun stuff, right? So autocracy occurred first, World War II happened later, but the final solution was also in the midst of World War II. That was still 10 steps. This 10 steps is simply the autocracy aspect of it. And we are literally on step 9, which I paused it here. I don't know which one this is, but
and it's neutered because if
she is explaining how autocracy works in step by step. And we are on step 9, which will be obviously closer to the end of this video.
You go after the media. With the media, you make sure that you demonize and criticize the legitimate media so that nobody trusts it. And then you create an echo chamber so that the only truth that people hear is the truth you want them to hear, even if it's not truth. Even if you put truth in the name, it's not true. Then you start to gut government. You fire all of the people who know how to do stuff. You break democracy by making people think they don't need it. And the best way to do that is to make sure that the things that they've learned to rely on are no longer available. Because then you become the only way they get what they want. So you fire the CDC so that vaccine rates drop and the disease rises. You fire FEMA so that when there's a natural disaster, the only way you get what you need is by begging for it. So you gut the civil service so that no one can actually do the work that democracy is supposed to protect us for. At the same time, you hire a bunch of people that you call loyalists, and you put them in place so that they don't hire anybody who doesn't agree with you.
Which kills me, because wasn't Marco Rubio one of his most staunchest adversaries? Like, so was JD Vance. JD Vance even called Trump Hitler. How do you go from being one of the most prolific adversaries to Donald Trump to becoming one of his staunchest political loyalists? That's insane to me.
But you also put them in positions of power. So then your next step is that you go after the people who do the good work. So you sue law firms, you sue philanthropies. Then step 7, you got to have someone to blame. They've blamed everybody. They've blamed women, they've blamed children, they've blamed people of color. They've blamed immigrants. They are doing all of that because they know at step 7, if you can push that forward, then we're fighting each other and fighting for survival instead of fighting for our country. And then you start to incentivize private violence. That's step 9. Maybe you send the National Guard and Marines and you militarize kidnapping people off of the streets, throwing them into detention.
So this is what, step 8?
Detention camps, and then arresting people who dare to challenge you, calling any question obstruction of justice. Civic participation, the First Amendment, is the 9th category because if you...
Remember, ICE acting with impunity as unmasked or masked without showing their badge and unmarked vehicles kidnapping people off the streets is step 8. It is July 2nd, people. He swore an oath to the Constitution on January 21st in the year of our Lord of 2025. Which, that's not even 6 months ago. It has been 5 months, and we are on step 8 of autocratic rule, of solidifying autocratic rule. It has been a touch, like 9 days, 10 days, 11 days. It's been 11 days past the 5-month mark. So 5 months, 2 weeks later, we are on step 8 of the accumulation and solidification of autocracy, of autocratic power in the United States of America with this administration. And people are, well, he's just, no, he is becoming a dictator. We are on step 8. Do you not? We're on step 8.
Can militarize your response. You also convince people it's not worth the possible pain of calling out the problems. And once you've gotten to step 9, step 10 is easy. You make sure no one ever votes again because now you've got them captive, now you've got them scared, now you've got them poor, and now you've got the power. That's autocracy in 10 steps.
So,
all right, this feels almost...
Did we learn something, folks? Did we learn something? Because I'm not gonna lie, I personally would not have been able to say what step we were on, and I wouldn't have also been able to tell you what was the key defining factors of those 10 steps of achieving autocracy in a government, right? But that being said, I knew that there were 10 steps, and I also knew that we were pretty fucking far along on that. I thought we were at step 7, actually. Turns out we were on step 8, because actually step 7 was, what? Within a couple months, because the unmasked ICE agents was, I think, closer to a month ago when that really started kicking off. Right? But that's the misinformation, which was like, what, step 6? Like, this is insane. That shit right there, I mean, obviously, it's not like once you get to step 8, you don't continue doing steps 1 through 7, right? It's just step 8 is like what you start adding to the whole mix. So step 1 is, well, again, I don't have this memorized yet, and I think I will because it makes a great talking point, but oh no, step 1 is to get elected first. So yeah, you've already done step 1. Step 2 is when you start doing the loyalty shit stuff, right? So you just keep expanding every single time. So once you've pushed the barrier and you've achieved the next step, you just double down on all the other steps. And attacking the media and attacking your political dissenters and attacking your political adversaries is step 6, I believe. So absolutely batshit insane. Batshit. All right. So Constantino running for New York is calling him a Nazi and going on a Nazi search for anybody who supports Ronan. That's insane. And the worst part is that that's only aiding and abetting the administration, which doesn't actually have to be the ringleader of the authoritarian steps, just has to be benefiting from it. Oh, here we go.
One of the messages
some halfway decent
Madeleine is to give the awareness.
وسيصل إلى غزة لكسر الصمت وكسر الحصار المفروض على قطاع غزة.
Even if we didn't reach Gaza, we tried.
Wait.
And the people should know that there is a way to try to break the siege.
If this is about the Maydeen, we already know about this. That did not work out for anybody. Nothing got accomplished there.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Oh shit, that's Shibuya.
Stop bombing Palestine!
This dude is protesting in the most heavily foot traffic place in Japan, in the Shibuya crosswalk. I think it's some astronomical amount of people. It's like 10 million people walk across that crosswalk every single day. And this man is protesting at a place where 10 million people will pass him. Now, obviously, in many cases, it's the same 10 million people, but that is an effective, oh my God, that is an effective strategy. Hello, True Steel. The thing about the progressives, and I'm learning a little bit more too, about how our politics works, because I know about policy per se. I know that our political parties are extremely corrupt. I know we have like all these weird campaign rules and regulations. I know there's different ways to organize this, that, and the other, right? I'm not saying like I'm ignorant about how politics works in our country. What I'm saying is you find out more interesting things as the deeper down the rabbit hole you go. I always assumed Democrats primaried progressives because they just wanted to consolidate their establishment power. That's what I always thought it was. And that's the way it was always presented. Hillary Clinton, right? That big one. Obama, big one. That crazy lady, the blonde lady from fucking Florida, right? That's what you think of when you think of Democrats and establishment. You think of the individual. But in all actuality, it's AIPAC and the ADL. Not all of it, but driving the federal primary system. If you don't have their endorsement or their resources, you lose. Again, I thought they were more of a Republican problem, not a Democrat problem. But as it turns out, they're an America problem. They infest everything.
800日以上共に街中に立ってガザ地区で起こっていることに対し話し続けました。
And give this man a fucking water.
このような姿勢を忘れてしまった我が国悪い無関心がこの世で一番価値が悪い。
I'm actually surprised more Japanese people aren't joining
このような
them.
運動が今最も求められているとボイコットマクドナルドボイコットマクドナルド
Like, I'm actually genuinely surprised that more Japanese people are not.
ニュースを見てると毎日信じられないようなことが起こっている。子供を殺したり焼き殺したり人間が生きたまま焼かれたりそれをどこの国も
You know, it's not like I need an excuse to go to Tokyo because it's the mecca of gamers everywhere. And I'm not even trying to like conflate the Muslim religion. Tokyo, Japan is literally where most games have literally been born. Most all anime, because anime is Japanese animation, exists literally because of Tokyo. So it is literally the epicenter of nerddom, of fandom, of most JRPG, of all Japanese culture and art is like almost entirely centered in Tokyo. So I really want to go. Again, mind you. But to stand beside this man in Shibuya, to stand for Gaza and on behalf of Gaza, and kind of get to the point, like, this is real, it's happening, and like, you do need to care. That's insane. It is.
イスラエルの自衛権の発動とか言っている。それがとにかく信じられない。
Oh, I would fight those motherfuckers. I would fight them on site.
From the river to the sea. Tokyo River. No, not Tokyo River. No, Japan River. No, Japan River.
My friend.
He's lucky he didn't get assaulted by those Israelis.
No. One name. Give me the name of your friend Palestine.
パレスチナに対して反感を持っている人もいて、私の持っているプラカードを見て、ジェノサイドなんて起こっていない。パレスチナなんて国は存在しないとか。
If you're saying there isn't a country named Palestine, and that country existed for thousands of years during the Ottoman Empire, because there is documentation from the Ottoman Empire dating that the people that you have displaced from their homes, that they have home deeds from the Ottoman Empire stating that you are a Palestinian resident at that fucking address, that's genocide, folks. Genocide is the systematic erasure or intentional attempted erasure of a culture or a people. That's what genocide is. And those motherfuckers literally said there is no country called. That's genocide. That is fucking genocide per definition.
初めにやったのはハマスの方だろうとか言って結構怒鳴られたり、殴られそうになったり、首絞められたり、あるいは頬を引っ叩かれたり、突き飛ばされたり、唾をかけられたりすることは散々ありました。
And the Japanese government should. This kills me, though. How is this not bigger? First of all, outstanding find, Anna, because I don't think we've come across this guy at all. I have never heard of this. And this is huge. He is a one-man protest. This is Greta Thunberg levels of shit, because that's what Greta did. She was a student in Sweden, and she skipped school to protest climate change at the fucking parliament building by her damn self until she got international attention. Like, this man is the Greta Thunberg of Japan. Obviously not a teenager.
G7 加入国の立場から何をしてるんですか。
人間を人間として扱わないで何が
先進国ですか。イスラエルという国家がやってることに対して
It actually disturbs me a little bit that Japanese people seem to be not giving a fuck.
国際人道法を違反してはいけない。それらを壊してしまったら世界の平和秩序が壊れてしまう。
And he's absolutely right.
Japanese people ignorant about Gaza. パレスチナのガザ地区で今起こっている惨状、人権侵害、これに対し毎日声を上げ続ける。
What a fucking legend.
これによって何が達成されるかは正直今は分かりません。しかし人間として、人権を享受している人間としてやらなければいけない行為、責任、責務、義務だと思っています。Free Gaza! Stop bombing Palestine! Stop bombing Palestine!
What a legend. What's his name? I don't think they even actually said his name. They just said this guy. Him. He is doing this. Yusuke Furusawa. Yusuke Furusawa. I only know how to pronounce Yusuke because Yusuke is apparently a very common Japanese name, or at least there are quite a few famous people whose names are Yusuke. And then Furusawa. That's instant. I add him to the list of allies because this man is doing the work. Where there are people who don't care or people who shout back at you that it just can't be genocide going on. Which is funny because by literally denying that the genocide is happening is also part of the definition of the genocide. It's erasure. Okay. I feel like I'm the aliens guy. It's erasure instead of aliens. It's genocide. It's fascism. It's autocracy. I'm gonna have to eventually do more of these like little, like, you know how when you redeem your little points, like this one, I'm gonna have to do that, but for autocracy, genocide, fascism. Did I already say genocide? I mean, I'm gonna have to do that for a few others. But again, genocide definition: the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. So it wasn't just the erasure part, my bad. That might be ethnic cleansing. I'm sorry. Let's just argue the semantics of what kind of erasure of a people is happening in real time on social media with our tax dollars, munitions, and apparently some few soldiers participating in it. Now let's just argue over the fucking semantics, but it is genocide. I mean, let's just...
And Doug.
More disturbing news.
Okay, here's...
The U.S. Agency for International Development has officially wrapped up its operations more than 60 years since it was founded. Some of its functions have been transferred to the State Department. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said America's foreign assistance will now be limited and targeted. President Donald Trump began dismantling the agency soon after taking office in January as part of his plan to reduce government spending. Thousands of staff and contractors were fired, while humanitarian aid to some of the world's most vulnerable populations was stopped. USAID was the world's largest humanitarian aid donor. It was founded under President John F. Kennedy in 1961, aimed at financing international development and humanitarian projects around the world. Most of its assistance are focused on global health, humanitarian and disaster relief, as well as economic development and governance. The USAID accounted for more than 40% of all humanitarian aid tracked by the UN in 2024. In 2023, it dispersed nearly $43 billion to countries around the world. Now joining us live from...
That's an insane statistic. I didn't know it was that prolific in global philanthropy, for the lack of a better word. But we also know from learning about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, and their alliance and their, well, creating a new nation as it seems to be heading, is that USAID was also a weapon used as a carrot to dangle in front of the starving masses that we or Europe created and are dictating the terms for that aid instead of altruistic humanitarianism, to keep them in a constant cycle of poverty and desperation. So on principle, on paper, you say, great thing, we need to do it, we need to be a humanitarian country. And in practice, though, it's just the most vile, mustache-twirling, monocle-wearing, top-hat motherfucking bullshit colonialization to have ever colonized. So it's a shame that it has that reputation, but it's also insane that 40% of all global aid just got wiped out. Like, because it still did good things. It still did save lives. It still did provide food, shelter, and medicine. It still did those things. It just also subjugated the people that it did those things for.
A desperate attempt to save lives. People from Deir el-Balah in central Gaza bring the wounded to the barely functioning Al-Aqsa hospital after an Israeli attack on a residential area nearby. But some arrived at the hospital not to be saved, but to be prepared for their burial. Among the dead, at least 3 children. Also being prepared for their burials, it's all too much for their parents. This is how a daily reality in Gaza. Death is constant, no family or child is spared from the Israeli bombardment of the Strip. Medical sources tell us more than 100 Palestinians were killed across Gaza in the last 24 hours. This is what's left after an attack on Al-Mawasi camp. These tents used to be homes. These are remnants of people's lives. This young girl is the only surviving member of her family.
Her parents, her brothers and sisters were killed. She is the only survivor. She miraculously survived the Israeli strike. Her grandfather was taking care of her, but he was killed. I don't know what she would do now. Who could provide for her? Who would take care of her? May God punish the Israelis for their cruelty.
As those who survived this latest attack try to salvage what's left of their homes, Israel carries out another strike nearby. Grief-stricken, exhausted and shocked, Palestinians in Gaza City carried the wounded to ambulances after yet another assault targeting a densely populated makeshift camp.
Is Israel even pretending to say that, oh, we thought there was Hamas there? Or are they I don't think they're pretending anymore. True Steel, I honestly, I am right there with you. Like, this literally makes me want to get on an airplane, like, drain my bank account, suit up, buy a private charter, because there's no regulations on a private charter, and just drop me off somewhere in Palestine. Drop me off somewhere at the border of Israel. I'll make my way to Palestine, because this is evil. This is cruelty. They are literally murdering people who are desperate and starving at aid sites. And they're not even pretending that it's about finding Hamas fighters anymore. I'm fucking like this is this. I don't want to not do these videos. I don't want to not talk about Palestine because the cruelty and the horror just fills me with rage. And that's obviously the point, but it's also, if it makes me angry, I'm going to want to be away from it so I'm not angry, which is also the point. We have to bear witness. That's what it feels like. It feels like that's the only way I can just keep looking at this, is because if I don't, I am betraying the Palestinian people. To me. Right. People, I mean, you expect me to give a flying fuck about the IDF or Zionists or Israelis at all? And I'm not, I will stop you for trying to conflate Israelis and Jews. I will never allow you to say that. I will never. I will again die long before I allow you to conflate Judaism with what's going on here. This is pure, unfiltered, unadulterated Zionism, which was a thought, an ideology that was developed post-World War I to get the Jewish population out of Europe and into the Middle East, and then use that as a justification for literally engaging in the end times according to the Bible. Zionism is a curse, and it is white supremacy and colonization at its core, which is why the majority of the population of Israel is from fucking Europe. So anyway, it's the Zionists that are causing this, and they are the ones that need to be fucking held accountable. I don't even know. How do you even conflate the two? But see, that's the crazy part. It's not just that the IDF soldiers are Nazis, which they are, but it's also the Israeli settlers who are Nazis, who believe in their biblical right to just displace Palestinians from their homes that they are literally living in because God wills it. And then now they're attacking their own soldiers for some reason. Like, that doesn't even, I don't.
That's what makes it for me. Like, that's what does it for me. That's what I'm saying. It's the summer of chicken strips and sauces. Order
I'm stress eating right now. I think that's what's happening right now.
Franklin University makes it possible. Time has come, make a break.
A holy moment for Argentinian President Javier Milei. On his second trip to Israel since assuming office, he once again made a beeline to the Western Wall in Jerusalem. An emotional experience that also has personal significance. The charismatic...
To be clear, Israel doesn't just have influence over American politicians, but also European politicians, and as it turns out, Latin countries as well. Somehow Israel is literally, Zionism is literally manipulating the strings, puppeteering a vast majority of the global government, elite, infrastructure. I don't even know what to call that. If ever there was an Illuminati, forget the fucking Rothschilds. It's the Zionists in Israel.
An irreverent leader and economist who vows to end 200% inflation. El año que viene, la inflación habrá sido un problema del pasado. Has a connection to Judaism and to Israel that goes beyond spiritual. He revealed last year that his grandfather admitted on his deathbed that he descends from a Jewish rabbi. He even admits to reading Torah daily and that he plans to convert after his presidency.
Muchas gracias, Padre. Muy bien. Gracias. Gracias.
This, despite being raised Catholic. President Milei's 10-day European tour included a visit to the Vatican with the new Pope, Leo XIV. Milei also met with world leaders like Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni.
En 40 años, Argentina va a ser la primer potencia mundial, sin lugar a dudas.
He also took the stage at an economic forum in Madrid, while also joining forces with French President Emmanuel Macron.
Well, that's the thing. Argentina was where Nazis fled World War II to avoid the consequences of their fucking actions. So does that surprise me in the slightest? No.
Pledging to sign a strategic alliance. But Milei's 3-day trip to Israel, which includes meeting President Herzog at his home, President Milei has gone on a limb as one of the few world leaders to openly and unapologetically support Israel, especially as anti-Semitic attacks on Jews in Argentina has skyrocketed since the October 7th massacre. Milei took his...
And we're still reporting as if the massacre was committed by Palestinians, which it has been unequivocally proven is not the case. What in the fuck?
First trip as president just 2 months after winning the election. He not only visited Yad Vashem, but also Kibbutz Nir Oz, and continues to call for a return of the Israeli hostages still in Gaza. This current visit will include a ceremony at the Knesset where he will be the first non-Jew awarded the annual Genesis Prize, known as the Jewish Nobel Peace Prize. He's pledged to use the $1 million to strengthen Latin American diplomatic ties with Israel.
That's the problem. No journalism, not even Al Jazeera, is reporting that this massacre, that this genocide is happening because Israel perpetrated it. And even Al Jazeera broke the fucking story. Oh my goodness. Well, here's a long video.
Big ideas.
What's bringing China and the EU closer? The two sides are marking 50 years of relations this month.
All right, so I get it. I just completely fucked that all off and was like, all right, let's just go to the next video, right? But here's the thing. How else are you supposed to react when there is a genocide being live streamed, being reported on by every fucking news agency on the planet, and is literally sticking to the messaging that the perpetrators of the genocide is ordering them to? Again, Israel has been committing genocide against Palestine for the past 70 years. It's only gotten this bad since October 7th, but we also now know unequivocally, although it was obviously heavily speculated, that Israel was the one that orchestrated the devastation of that attack. Again, the short term, the short notice relocation and the bombs still being present. Here's the thing. We've all watched action movies, have we not? Have we all not watched at least one live free or die hard type movie? Like, have we not watched at least one action superhero type movie? We have, right? Has any terrorist, has any government spy, has any military hardcore badass mamba jamba ever been able to just be like, oh shit, they moved the location? Well, we set up to annihilate this here. We're just going to do the exact same strategy and plan with the exact same materials and resources, and we're going to just figure it out. At this new location, we have 48 hours to do it. Let's go. That has never happened in a single movie ever. James Bond is based off of different spies during World War II from MI6 who accomplished ridiculous feats of espionage, but also combat and infiltration. But some of them were so fucking ridiculous that Hollywood was like, bro, come on, nobody's gonna believe this. Such as the wetsuit and the tuxedo. That scene happened twice in real life. But Hollywood was like, there's no way they're gonna believe that it happened at all. Okay? So you mean to tell me that terrorists who have to plan for months and months and months in advance, doing all sorts of surveillance over locations, personnel, places, things, have contingency plans when they don't have the resources to even build the contingency plan in the first place? Because you know what the contingency plan was for Flight 93? There wasn't one. They had no plan in place for the passengers themselves choosing death and choosing to crash the airplane over an unpopulated field rather than allowing it to go into the Pentagon. There was no backup plan to that. There was none. There was no backup plan to that. There was no contingency. There was no fifth airplane that was ready to go should Flight 93 have failed. There was, we're going to get the ones in the Twin Towers. We're going to get something to get to the Pentagon. Something got to the Pentagon. And Flight 93 to hit the White House or wherever it was going to at the time. So you mean to tell me that Hamas, which doesn't have funding, doesn't have resources, is not an active military, hasn't had the ability to effectively launch any sort of defense or antagonistic attack against Israel for the past 80 years, came up with such a bold strategy, bold opportunity to commit an act of terror against Israeli concert goers, that they even had a plan in place if it had gone to Auschwitz? Are you fucking stupid? Well, it wasn't actually Auschwitz. It was a concentration camp or memorial of some sort, right? That's what it was. The point being, what terrorist organization that wants to build sympathy internationally through this act of terror would ever commit an act of terror in front of anything relating to the Holocaust? If you want to gain sympathy, the very last thing you will ever do is murder anybody at, near, around, or within any amount of proximity of a Holocaust memorial, museum, or the fucking Auschwitz concentration camp its fucking self. You would never do that. You would it doesn't matter if you were Islamic extremism, it doesn't matter if you were Christian nationals. If you want people, unless you are a neo-Nazi, that's the only people that would commit an atrocity in front of a Holocaust museum or something to do with the Holocaust. It would be the Nazis who did that. Not even the KKK would do that. Not the Proud Boys. MS-13 wouldn't even do that. Like, no, motherfucker. We will get the entire world to end our cartel yesterday if we did that, right? Like, you take the most hardened, aggressive, violent gangs, cartels, terrorist organizations on the planet, and they're like, we're not going to do that. Like, we might attack Israel, we might attack Jewish people or whatever, Christians, whatever else. But if we attack anything to do with the Holocaust, we're done. We are glass. Like, the entire world will be crawling up our asshole and using our asshole as the puppet thing and talking out our mouths. Like, there's no fucking way. No fucking way. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, not anybody other than actual Nazi-affiliated groups like the Aryan Brotherhood. And let's not forget that they supposedly organized all of that right under Israel's nose, in spite of the insane surveillance, and in spite of the insane military presence. Let's be very clear. The technology that they literally... Palestine doesn't get anything unless Israel allows it. So the fact that Hamas had guns at all was a significant act of espionage and acquisition of weapons. Extreme. Because again, there's been a blockade around Palestine for the past 15 years. For 15 years, the Israeli Navy has blockaded anything into Palestinian ports. So it's not like Russian AKs made it through that. You know, obviously something had to have gotten smuggled somewhere, but smuggling versus acquisition. And do you think you're going to get to the sophisticated levels of technology to bypass surveillance? Come on. Absolutely not. And again, this is just using Hollywood logic. This is just using video game logic. This is just using the fact that Palestinians literally don't have agency over their own lives. And just using common sense from there. Like, except media still says the Hamas massacre on October 7th. Like, you have got to be fucking kidding me.
Holding talks and pledging deeper cooperation. But how far will this go, and who stands to gain the most, Beijing or Europe? This is Inside Story. I'm Adrian Finnegan. China and the EU are marking 50 years of diplomatic relations this month. At the core of their partnership is trade. They account for two of the biggest economies in the world after the United States. The Chinese foreign minister is visiting EU headquarters this week as he seeks closer ties in what he's called a volatile world. The US, under President Trump, has increasingly turned to sweeping tariffs to get what it wants. Although Beijing and Brussels are hoping to improve their economic ties, they have disagreements on a number of issues, including tariffs on electric vehicles and China's close ties with Moscow on the war in Ukraine. So, are the EU and China looking to sideline Washington? And what will that mean for global trade and economic order?
My 2 cents is that's exactly what they should fucking do, because there's only one way to fight authoritarianism. And that is by denying it entirely, right? Now, the actual activities of fighting authoritarianism, that's as long as the day is long, right? You need to fight it from within. You need to fight it from all quarters. You need to fight it from without. You need to fight it within the country, outside of the country. You need to do it through trade, diplomatic relations, injunctions, the judicial system. Every international and local, like you have to do everything all at once because they're doing everything everywhere all at once. Quoting the movie. So no, what Europe and China should do, and Russia, is do a handshake agreement that just cuts out the United States entirely, because Trump cannot survive that. This administration cannot survive being cut out from global trade entirely. There's no fucking way. And of course, the 83, they're not going to stand for that. They're going to lose their fucking minds. This is their piggy bank. This is their playground. This is capitalist heaven. As we can tell, given that the capitalists are winning every single fucking argument, race, battle, and war that is being waged in this country right now. So the 83 won't allow it to happen. Or they won't let this administration survive if it does happen. But then again, they might at that point cut and dip and be like, all right, fine. The capitalist experiment in America has devolved. America is now an official isolated state like North Korea. Good luck with that. And then this administration falls. It collapses because it will literally consume itself. And people will rise up because now they're not getting food, they're not getting stuff, there's nothing anymore because our entire economy is predicated on global trade. We don't make anything. We don't make anything, and the shit we do make sucks. In both quality, longevity, purpose, usefulness, it sucks. Our infrastructure, our roads are crumbling, our bridges are coming down, our railway systems, we have 100 derailments every fucking month. We're not building more ports. We can't even fly airplanes safely anymore. People are 60% of people are already living in poverty. So you'd have to increase their material conditions, which you can't. Because again, you don't have the resources to do the things necessary that would allow the material conditions to improve, such as improved infrastructure, manufacturing of things domestically, distribution of things domestically. First of all, we also can't grow coffee, right? Like, there are things that this country just cannot do. Coffee and citrus being, well, okay, now I guess peaches and oranges. But like, maybe pineapples from Hawaii. I guess we can do a little bit of that. But no coffee, no tobacco. Well, I guess some tobacco. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of rare earth metals, like the magnets shit. We don't got that here. We might have a little bit of uranium, but certainly not enough. Lithium, I don't think we have enough of that. Cobalt, I don't think we actually have. I think that's one of the things that China has exclusively. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, what all do we have? I think we have iron and gold, but gold doesn't do you any good if you're trying to use it as your reserve currency, which won't necessarily matter because every industry has just jumped ship, which means they're taking all of their stuff with them, which means now we have to manufacture manufacturing from scratch. Like, do you I don't think people actually realize how fucked the United States of America. Oh, but we have the strongest military until our fuel runs out in 48 hours. Like, and we're also running low on our munitions too, because we don't manufacture even our own fucking munitions here anymore. So it's like, I personally think the EU and China, if they really wanted to stick it to the United States, should make sure that the United States is completely cut off from global trade.
To our guests in a moment, but first, Imogen Kimber reports.
China's foreign minister is in Europe, ahead of a summit with EU leaders at the end of this month, marking 50 years of relations.
At a time when the world is undergoing accelerated changes unseen in a century, with unilateralism, protectionism and acts of bullying raging on, China and the EU, as two major powers, markets and civilizations, need to strengthen strategic communication, uphold multilateralism and free trade.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi is visiting France, Germany for talks on diplomacy and security, and Brussels for meetings on enhancing economic cooperation. The EU, as a bloc, has the second largest economy in the world, and China is third. Trade between the two sides is huge.
I thought GDP of China has been substantially higher.
A day. China is the EU's second largest.
Do we? I honestly thought 83 was a little low, but how many billionaires are in the US? If you type that in, the fuck? Did I have a fucking dyslexic moment? Did I just simply not see the number one in there? The fuck? So, okay. 83 billionaires. That number is going around somewhere. From Jasmine Crockett, maybe? 83 billionaires supporting Kamala Harris in America. In a specific context. I see. So it's okay. So maybe I did tunnel vision. Okay. So the 813, the 813, I don't give a shit. That is what we need to do. The 813, the parts per million, the 1 ppm. Actually, I guess they would be slightly more than 1 part per million. It would be approximately 2.5 ppm. 813, the 2 ppm. That's the problem. They're the problem. We need to figure it out. All right, hold on. So let's add this to the list of terminology we need to focus on making here. We have the tenets of leftism, the right to healthcare, education, housing, body autonomy, expression, and existence without question, and the necessity to end genocides anywhere they are occurring. I know there's a couple more, because it ended up being more than 5, but those are the ones that I wrote down. And then we're going to also do something about the 813, the 813, the 2 ppm, the 2.5 ppm, something along those lines, I think is where we're going to want to go with that. Okay, so fine, it's 813. That's still not a significant figure in terms of a demographic. But to that end,
trading partner
thank you for
after
correcting
the US, while the EU is China's biggest partner. And collectively, the two economic giants make up around a third of the world's imports and exports. Europe relies on China for critical minerals, which are used in cars and appliances.
Which
and
only China
imports
has.
Machinery and vehicles from the EU. But there has been some animosity. The EU has a trade deficit of $300 billion with China, and Brussels has imposed tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, reportedly encouraged to do so by the US.
China, 67%.
But when the Trump administration came to power, it increased tariffs on both China and the EU. While the initial tariff was reduced, it remains higher than it was before. There have been talks between the EU and Trump, but the US president doesn't hide his disdain for Europe.
The European Union was formed in order to take advantage of the United States in trade. That was why they were formed, and they're nasty. They're very nasty. We have a good relationship. I'm dealing with Ursula right now.
For Europe, an unreliable strategic ally, after Trump told the Europeans to be more self-reliant for their security. So it's with this backdrop that Chinese and EU leaders will meet. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Which is hilarious, right? Because again, it's the United States causing all of this, right? The United States, under this administration, is saying Europe is weak, China is the enemy, figure it out. And they're like, all right, cool, so we'll chat. That's insane to me because, like, and it's not insane to me that I don't think it's a problem. By all means, Europe, China, get together. The thing is, America should be leading this. Do you have any idea how much improved trade and economic power we would have if we were the ones brokering trade between Europe and China instead of antagonizing China? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Well, those are the ones that I read. So there's a couple more.
So let's bring in our guests from Brussels. We're joined.
Ah, damn it. I don't want to hear you guys do your fucking... I wanted to hear what the actual negotiations was. Antagonizing the whole world? That was a tenet? I think there's some context missing there.
At Penn Station,
oh my
your
God,
ears
are we
may
serious?
hear, and you're craving deep inside here's premium meats.
So, read this fucking title. Poland prepares to defend itself against potential Russian invasion. We're literally, how are we setting ourselves up for the exact same conditions that have led to every single world war, even though Israel is the one that's instigating it? How is it devolving back to Poland being invaded by Russia and or Germany? Bruh.
Poland is gearing up for war. People are being mobilised, borders fortified, weapons built.
Poland is looking to make itself ready for a potential invasion.
Earlier this week, NATO countries agreed to lift their defence spending to 5% of GDP by the year 2035, but Poland will reach that spending target by next year.
Polish history has been marked by invasions. Its location in Europe has made it vulnerable to foreign aggressors for generations. But now, with a conflict next door involving an increasingly unpredictable Russia, the government here says it's doing everything it can to prevent Poland being captured yet again.
Right. It's literally the same exact conditions, the exact same conditions that led to World War II and World War I in the first place. It's literally, I got to build my military. Oh, they're building theirs. I got to build mine. Oh. Hey, we have these militaries. It would be a shame if we didn't use them. You know who we should test them out on? I think I know you're talking. Yeah, Poland. And then Poland disappears off the map for 40 years.
Saw a recruitment drive with a difference.
I'm here because I want to learn the basics of military service. I'm interested in it, especially since Russia attacked Ukraine.
Every weekend, civilians are signing up to receive basic military training offered by the Polish army.
We have 4 sons, so in case...
I'm sorry, but...
Civilians are signing up to receive basic military training offered by the Polish army.
I'm sorry, but if you're that close to the enemy before you've taken a shot, and they're also that close to you without them having taken a shot, like, I don't know what that is, but that's not war fighting. Like, one of you two should have been dead a long time ago from that distance with that weapon. Especially since that looks like it's a scope with a red dot attachment in front of it. So, like, you have the scope, which gives you your range, and then there's the red dot in front of it, which the red dot actually follows the pupil of your eye on target across the barrel, so you can keep your eyes open and not lose your perspective. Is it parallax? Perception? Depth perception? Whatever it is, you're allowed to keep both your eyes open. You're supposed to, in fact, keep both your eyes open, and the red dot points to wherever it is, and then the scope is obviously a scope, so you're getting magnification plus the dot. So it's literally point and shoot like a video game. And I mean...
We have 4 sons, so in case of an explosion, I would like to know what to do, how to defend my children and myself.
Is that something you worry about?
That is an M4 as well, by the way. That's like an actual...
I do.
Over the past 12 years, Poland has doubled its army of soldiers to 300,000, but it still wants more.
Someone will catch the bug at training.
By the way, 300,000 is about... See, I think when I was in the Air Force, I think we had, I want to say 350,000, 400,000. Like, there's a threshold to what is actually constituted as a branch, and we were scraping that number. How many airmen in USAF? 313,000, between 313,000 and 321,000 active duty service members in the United States Air Force. So the entire Polish army is equivalent to the one branch, the US Air Force.
And then join the army.
We're on our way to the Polish border with Russia to take a look at something called Operation East Shield, which is basically a Polish military effort to fortify its border. And construction
Did they just
started.
Hold on. I did not hear this man say Operation Meat Shield.
Polish border with Russia to take a look at something called Operation East Shield, which is...
Okay. East Shield. Operation East Shield, basically, not Meat Shield. They are not going to use their civilians as a fucking meat shield. Holy Christ.
This is designed to scare off the enemy. They're built in order to concentrate their movements, to narrow them down and to give the Polish army a possible counteroffensive and allow the population to evacuate.
Yeah, but you know what the Russians have to do is just not
Russia.
drive down there.
Small territory of Kaliningrad is just meters
True, they're not
from where
Israel.
The fortification is taking place.
Israel does
These
use human
concrete
shields.
structures will eventually line 800 kilometers of Poland's border with the Russian exclave.
Yeah, as I say, like that's like maybe a kilometer worth. You're going to need to get way
In
more.
the first line, we have the anti-tank mine. Then we have a line of reinforced concrete.
Do you feel Poland is ready if something does happen?
Yes, Poland is definitely ready.
I mean, apparently not, because you don't have all 800
Just a few kilometres from the border,
of your border.
Opinions are still mixed on whether an increasingly hawkish Russia will look to encroach on Polish territory.
They're building these unnecessary barriers on the border, and I don't like it.
Everyone is afraid, including my friends, when we see what is happening in Ukraine.
Which, again, something that is being not discussed is, okay, so there is a credible threat that Russia might steamroll Ukraine and then move on to Poland or something, right? Like, that's a credible threat. Like, that is not a not real threat. That is an actual credible threat that Russia does, in fact, at some point decide to attack Poland. That is a credible threat. Israel is attacking fucking Iran, or did, and they might be agreeing to a 60-day ceasefire. Who fucking knows? I doubt it. But hey, anyway, it is a credible threat that Russia may seek more aggression against Eastern Europe. That's a credible threat. But what's Europe doing anyway is increasing both its military presence, its military platform at the behest of the United States, which is also going through its own autocratic reformation, whilst the same autocratic ideology that is now in the process of becoming entrenched in the United States is also permeating in all of Europe. All of Europe. Every European country is dealing with their own version of MAGA right now, which is even scarier when you consider Germany's part of Europe, and Germany is also dealing with the AfD, which is literally the Nazis. Like, they're the not Nazis that are actually the Nazis, and they are gaining power and control and influence every single fucking day. So what's Germany, the government, doing? Building up its military presence, consolidating its power, because of the looming threat of Ruskvia. Again, what were the conditions that led to World War II? Authoritarianism, fascism, the rise of military, the development of military, and more ultranationalism, which is what's happening right now in the year of our Lord 2025? What's happening right now? Oh, that. We're not discussing that. That the same conditions that led to World War II are literally happening again throughout Europe, is now infesting America in ways that we could not have foreseen, or hoped to have foreseen, rather, and with the addition of Middle Eastern unrest on as well. The scapegoating was, absolutely, 100%.
Ukraine has seen a huge uptake in unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones, and that's changed the face of modern warfare.
Well, this is Fly-Eye.
Warmate? Really? That sounds like a fucking
Poland
Tupperware.
is providing Ukraine with vast amounts of its aerial artillery. John Basin is a senior executive of the Polish-based WB Electronics, the country's largest drone manufacturer.
Since the Russian invasion in 2022, we've dramatically increased our production, dramatically increased the number of drones that we provide to Ukraine.
Now, the company is helping increase Poland's supply.
We've increased our production by 250-fold to try and meet the demand.
It's not just weapons. Poland needs more boots on the ground too.
We want to learn something
Poland
new.
needs more
Let's know how to
military.
behave
Everybody
in
needs
case
more
of
military.
any,
Because if we have more
With
military,
war
it's a
enabling
deterrent.
Ukraine showing no sign of ending, Poland isn't leaving anything to chance. Elias Kluwer, ABC News, Poland.
Yeah, that's not at all disturbing. Not at all disturbing that Europe is gearing up for another war against the quote-unquote Axis powers, except this time, two of the Axis powers are on the same side, but of the good guys, quote-unquote. I don't know what World War III is going to look like, folks, but I can honestly tell you I didn't expect World War III to be in our lifetime. I didn't think we would be having a World War III. I thought we were progressing towards international trade and globalization. I thought we were actually heading towards Star Trek. But that's the problem, because Star Trek did have World War III before it became Star Trek. So shame on me for forgetting that tiny little tidbit of information. We are heading towards Star Trek. We're heading there. But first, we got to have a little dose of World War III and hope it doesn't end up into the Gundam universe, or worse, Mad Max. We were talking about the AfD at my job today, and my coworkers agreed that they are the Nazis. Yeah, it's not a debate. That's not a debate. There's not a debate. And the fact that it is a debate in Germany is what's terrifying. And the fact that the right wing everywhere in the world is making it a debate is what makes it scary and obvious that they are, in fact, the Nazis. Because you only debate about whether or not something's Nazi if they're acting like Nazis, but they're not using the name. So, and Star Wars was just a movie about galactic politics, star systems at war, and then it became in connection to the Cold War. Yeah, no, I mean, Star Wars was literally based off of Vietnam. But to your point, you know, it's yeah, this is Poland has a right to defend itself, and if there's a single country in Europe that probably should have a robust military, it's probably Poland, because they've been Europe's punching bag for the past 1,500 years. That said, every other country in Europe, not so much. Okay, now I did say we were struggling for content, but hey, I guess my freakouts. Haha, sorry, I guess that was a bad pun. My long-winded conversations about the topics here have actually given us more content time than I had expected. So let's go ahead and wrap up. If we're missing anything here. Because this is domestic policy that has just happened. The same thing with the 3 Mile Island. Diddy Combs, if we're not covering it today, we're definitely covering it tomorrow. Our boy Traore. Just want to make sure. All right, let's cover this.
Here in the heart of Europe, the German army, known as the Bundeswehr, is about to undergo a major transformation.
Not since the days of the Iron Curtain has Europe needed to focus so much on its military might. And the way the Trump administration is handling the war in Ukraine has told them they need to be ready.
Yeah, because he's going to fuck it up so bad that World War III is going to happen.
We got to step up, and we will do that.
Friedrich Merz, Germany's incoming chancellor, has just changed the constitution, unlocking hundreds of billions of euros for the army.
Das ist a German chancellor unilaterally changed the constitution of Germany to fund the military. Do I need to say that again? Do I need to at all explain why that is not any time a sentence you ever want to hear? Are you fucking kidding me?
Jetzt der Paradigmenwechsel in der Verteidigungspolitik, der uns bevorsteht.
Oh, in der Verteidigungspolitik für unsere Erforschung. The defense politics for our existence. That's what that translated to, folks. That's what he just. Let's hear that again.
Constitution, unlocking hundreds of billions of euros for the army.
Das ist jetzt der Paradigmenwechsel in der Verteidigungspolitik, der uns bevorsteht.
The invasion.
Oh, it translated there, the defense of us. This is the new paradigm shift in defense policy that lies ahead of us in their Forschung. Still, that's how they chose to translate it. It could still be straight as, for the defense and future of Germany. Fucking Christ. Can we just not? Can we agree? Can we just go back to agreeing that fascism equals bad? And that, like, war is not the solution to every fucking problem that we come across? Can we get back to, like, the Matrix had it correctly. 1999 was peak of human civilization. And, wow.
bevorsteht.
The invasion of Ukraine
Genocide
in
is
February
bad, Nazis are
2022
bad.
was a seismic moment for Europe. Here in Germany, it became known as Zeitenwende, turning point. And now, Friedrich Merz is looking to supercharge Germany's military spending. And he has a lot to change. Since the building of the Berlin Wall in the 1960s, Germany's military expenditure has dropped dramatically. In the 35 years since its fall, spending had, until recently, largely flatlined at just over 1%. So I asked the general, does he need more money?
I think every army in the world, in the history and also in the future, will always claim not to have enough.
The Bundeswehr is far from where it needs to be. In fact, a parliamentary report released recently said instead of the numbers of soldiers growing, they're shrinking. And overall, the army lacks everything. A possible new conscription program is one initiative being suggested. But Merz has a lot of catching up to do. Time will tell if a stronger German army will translate to a more secure Europe.
It
Here
didn't
in the heart
80
of
years
Europe,
ago.
the German
Are you? Oh my fucking God. I have German heritage. I'm German. I'm American, but I'm also German. And I remember distinctly reading in the history book during history class that the last time Germany became a military power, the first time Germany united and became a military power, it wanted to flex, and that was what led to World War I. And the aftermath of that was Germany becoming a superpower again, wanting to flex and instigating World War II. So there has never been a point in time since German unification in the 1860s or so where in which Germany and having a strong military did not result in a world war. So this guy and the rest of the world now apparently is saying, yeah, Germany needs to be the European Defense Force. Nani? Wokari wa nan desu ka? What? Ke? Ke? Was? I don't know what it is in French. Que? With like a sassy cigarette flick. I do not, again, love Germany, love the country, love the beer, love the pretzels, whatever. But like, we have authoritarianism, we have Nazism on the rise again. Now we're going to do militarization. We have the chancellor trying to consolidate power again, expanding the military again. Mind you, again, the Nazis are there, so like the enemy's big, scary Russia. And Germany is still the industrial superpower of Europe by a factor of like 3 or 4. With modern technology, which means like the invasion of England, that's not even a question of being possible anymore. But they're underfunded and understaffed, so let's just do more conscription. Where have we heard that one before? Yeah, no, like that's not good. That's not good. Das ist nicht gut. That was a very disturbing 1 minute and 49 seconds. A very disturbing 1 minute and 49 seconds. Let's cover Diddy, I guess.
Hey there! Planning a trip to the US? That's exciting.
Our breaking news, the judge in the Sean Diddy Combs trial
that's
has
good news,
just
at least.
rather shockingly denied him bail. This, of course, coming after the news that the jury convicted him of 2 of the lesser charges in the government's case against him, finding him not guilty of the 3 biggest and most consequential charges. Do we have Elizabeth Wagmeister?
Okay, so this is the part that kills me, right? Diddy is literally the Black Epstein. And I mean, again, all of the evidence was enough to bury this motherfucker for weeks. And the part that kills me is he's not guilty of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. He's not guilty of racketeering. He's not guilty of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. But he is guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. So he's guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution, but not sex trafficking? How the flying fuck are you guilty of one but not the other? How are you not guilty of both? And then the racketeering conspiracy, which if I'm not mistaken, and we can always Google this, racketeering is essentially using this as like a blackmail profiting scheme against powerful people. Am I not wrong? Am I wrong on that? Definition of racketeering. Dishonest and fraudulent business dealings. Form of criminal activity involving a pattern of illegal acts often carried out by an organized group for financial gain. Okay. Transportation to engage in prostitution is not financial gain. Like, how can you be guilty of 2 and not 5? Like, even if he was just guilty of the racketeering, how could he not be guilty of the rest of them? Like, are you fucking shitting me? They are stupid, and it's probably that they got bought. I mean, it's P. Diddy. He probably did Tupac. And here's the thing, jury selection is ridiculous. Like, they don't just, like, it's not like you get the letter in the mail and that's you. There's like a selection of like 40 or 50 people, and then the prosecutor and the defense get to pick theirs. Like, are you shitting me? We don't have a criminal justice system as we are seeing. So, like, right off the rip, this is fucked.
Okay, so let's get straight to CNN's Elizabeth Wagmeister, who's outside the court, along with Laura Coates. Laura, this is a surprising development. What are we learning? What are the judges?
Yeah, for the love of God, what are we learning?
For not letting him out?
Well, we are still learning all the reasons why the judge has denied bail to Sean Diddy Combs pending his sentencing. That can be an indication of a number of things. Remember, the prosecution is intending to ask for jail time in this matter. Each of those charges could provide 10 years in prison.
Good.
The sentencing guidelines will obviously dictate to what extent that will be followed. Those are the maximum. It is the ceiling, not the floor. But given the number of offenses he has failed to have in the past and the corresponding ways in which you judge someone's category that they're in for the ultimate decision of sentencing, it could be far less than that. I will say, of course, that the judge, by making this statement, essentially is giving a bit of a heads up that perhaps jail time is in fact what he will actually hand down to Sean Diddy Combs when the sentencing does in fact occur.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's some racial bias happening here, because did Giselle, right? Like, we haven't even heard anything about her ever since then, right? Epstein killed himself. Yeah, no, he didn't. But like, the judges are more inclined to throw the book at black people, even prolific black people like Diddy, and throw them in prison. I mean, fucking, now I can't remember his name. Can't remember his name. America's dad, essentially. He the one who was doing the K-Ludes, right? He went straight to jail. Diddy's going to go straight to jail. Trump is now president. And he has also federally forgiven, or Bill Cosby. Yes, Bill Cosby. Thank you. And like all of these white pastors and all that shit, like all of these small-timey fucks, yeah, they're getting time, but they're getting 5 years. They're getting 3 years, which again, they deserve significantly worse. but like they're not getting real time. But Diddy is already, and those guys got bail and shit like that. Diddy isn't getting any of that. So I mean, there is some racial bias, but it's also insane because he's getting rich people preference as well. How's it going, Adel Jose? It's insane to me because everything he has done at these parties, all of the celebrities like coming out of the woodwork just to bag on him and be like, no, dude, this shit was fucked, is basically Black Epstein, and they're actually looking at maybe giving him real jail time. It's insane to me. Let's find out more.
This indicates that the judge believes that there were no...
Yeah, bro, it is not going great for us either. I don't know if the 77 means your year, and so you're a touch older than I am, but like at the ripe old age of 35, living through the Great Depression, women's suffrage, the Civil Rights Movement, the ending of slavery, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the Civil Rights Movement again, queer rights the first time, the Cold War, World War I and World War II, and watching a genocide be live streamed, as well as now the second or third Epstein to be found guilty ever since Hugh Hefner died. Yeah, I'm not having a great time either. Okay, 1981, awesome. But you get what I'm saying. Like I'm right there with you, bro. It's rough. It is. I am not having a good time. I'm still recovering from fucking food poisoning that I gave myself on Sunday. Like, it's just not a good time right now. But hey, welcome to the stream. We will just suffer together, ride or die. And I think you meant something closer to like without the one in front, right? Like 976?
Conditions
or
of
BC at the end of that
could have been met that would have satisfied the court in terms of whatever pending threat there may have been to the society or the witnesses or victims in this case that as alleged, and that the conditions of release, including a passport being removed, no access to a flight, living in places other than New York, all these things could have been a part of it. You have additional information as well in terms of the why.
You know, we don't have the why quite yet. We are waiting from our team inside the courtroom. But when you said that part of the reason why could be that the judge perhaps believes that Combs could be a threat to society or the other witnesses, it reminded me of a letter that Cassie Ventura's attorney submitted just hours ago opposing him being released on bail. Jake, I want to read you a quote from his letter. It says, quote, Ms. Ventura believes that Mr. Combs is likely to pose a danger to the victims who testified in this case, including herself, as well as to the community. Now, before this trial began, Laura, we remember that there were 3 attempts at bail from Combs's defense, all of which were denied by 3 different judges, one of them being the judge who is overseeing this case. Now, part of the reasons why the prosecution had alleged that he was tampering with witnesses, that he was trying to manipulate witnesses from behind bars, the prosecution had said at one point that Sean Combs was paying inmates at the MDC to use their phones in jail. So that was one of the reasons why the judge denied bail before the trial, as he was awaiting this trial. But again, we don't know the reasons yet.
A perfect segue here, Jake, as well, because we're learning that the judge says this on the bench, essentially that he had denied bail when it wasn't mandatory before the trial, and, quote, sees no reason to reach the opposite conclusion now. He's also quoting the defense at different instances when Combs' own lawyers acknowledged his violence towards his former girlfriends during the trial, saying at trial the defense conceded defendants' violence in personal relationships, saying it happened in relation to Cassie Ventura and Jane. This is very important because, remember, one of the things that was said in the opening statement by Tenny Garagos is that they own the violence, that they admitted to what was seen in that now infamous exclusive video obtained by CNN for the Intercontinental Hotel, where there was a savage assault against Cassie Ventura. And of course, the defense, the prosecution during trial said, well, domestic violence is not a defense of sex trafficking. Well, he wasn't convicted on that, but you can better believe that the notice from Cassie's attorney and others probably weighed very heavily on this judge's mind.
And Elizabeth,
Jesus. Like, this dude has been acting like an actual gangster, like mafioso levels of gangster, from behind bars, assaulting the girls, assaulting the victims, the freak out parties, the whole 9 yards. And still, despite all of that evidence, only found guilty on the 2 lesser charges, which still carry jail time, but like, half workless and too much beer. Been there, brother. When she starts expanding her smarts, she'll probably say you were born in 1876 BC. How am I? Unless that was directed to Anna. Okay. All right. Carrying on.
You spoke.
I'm just streaming.
Cassie's,
you guys carry on.
We're going to bring some of that interview later in the show, but it has to be pretty difficult for someone like Cassie, who came forward to tell her story,
to be ignored because she's a black
woman, in
woman.
such a graphic and revealing and vulnerable way, and then have a jury of her peers basically say, "We don't believe you beyond a reasonable doubt."
Yeah, and here's the thing about beyond a reasonable doubt. It is a legal term. It has legal, like, there's a weight to it. Like, what are the requirements legally for beyond a reasonable doubt? There's an actual limit that you have to achieve. If at the trial of a person who is accused of offense that involved the person's use of force against another is evidence presented that tends to support that the accused person, blah, 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 the prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the accused person did not use the force in self-defense, defense of another, or something else. So, like, the beyond a reasonable doubt is not being defined here. What is the prosecution must convince the jury that there is no other reasonable explanation that can come from the evidence presented at trial. So that's the threshold. So, okay, somebody breaks into your house and you just immediately shoot them. The defense or the prosecution would have to prove that you had no other option other than to shoot the home invader. Now, depending on state laws, you have to flee. So if you didn't flee and you immediately opted for shooting, you have now been found guilty of murder, period, dot. In Ohio, you do not have a duty to retreat. So you shooting your home invader as your first choice is not an unreasonable outcome of that situation. You see where I'm going with that? So beyond a reasonable doubt, okay. So how do you abuse, like physically abuse this woman for years, prostitute her, and that not count as trafficking for the intent of prostitution against their fucking will?
Yes, Jake, so I know that we are going to get more of this interview a bit later in the show, but I will tell you that her attorney, Douglas Wigdor, did tell me that he believes that the jury actually did believe Cassie and did believe her core allegations, just that the burden is very high for these federal crimes, and that he believes that the jury ultimately did not see a way to meet this charge because, again, that the jury did not believe that the prosecutors met their burden of proof, but that he does.
Okay, and this is the part that pisses me off too. A jury of peers, regular folks like you and me, who do not have a law degree, who do not know anything about investigation, who do not know anything about evidence collection, forensics, any of that shit. You and I know fuck all about the actual criminal justice system, the process, or any of the processes that are involved. Certainly not the laws, and certainly not the capacity to interpret the laws. So to say that the jury just couldn't figure it out is unironically one of the largest flaws of our criminal justice system, because the average person wouldn't know what would be burden of proof regardless, because most people are so used to watching crime shows that they're like, well, if there isn't a smoking gun, then they didn't do it. Like, that's not how evidence works. That's not how that works. And so they had all this evidence. They had the victim. They had this, that, and the other. Like, well, I don't see the video in which Diddy forced her through violence to have sex with these people. I didn't see that, so I don't think that counts. So I was like, no, motherfucker. He beat her for years, prostituted this woman, and she clearly told you it was against her will. That is a beyond reasonable doubt. God, that's so fucking frustrating.
Believe that Cassie was believed. He also said that Cassie's very proud of herself. This was traumatic for her to testify, but it was also cathartic. She can now move on. We know that she is a mother of 3, a newborn at home. She was 8 months pregnant, testifying in this trial, had her 3rd child shortly after she got off the stand. So she's really focused on family. Her attorney told me that she has a great support system, not just her family, but also she is in therapy. She has great resources now, and he said, you never heal from this. It'll take a lifetime to heal, but she's well into that process. So it sounds like she is doing okay.
Why are they showing a bunch of clips of Diddy in a fucking tux?
Stacey, in denying bail, the judge quoted the defense at different instances in the trial when Sean Diddy Combs' lawyers acknowledged his acts of violence towards former girlfriends during the trial. And to be clear, this was not a domestic violence case. So their acknowledgement of that, especially when there was video of him beating up Cassie Ventura, was an attempt to get ahead of that judgment. What do you make of the judge's reasoning? Essentially, he's been violent to these women before. I see no reason why he wouldn't do it again.
Well, I think the judge can't unhear the testimony that he heard in the trial. And also, the judge pointed out that the defense attorneys during the trial admitted that their client was violent and had issues and problems and flaws, and that these were terrible situations. But again, the defense was saying it was domestic violence. I think the judge could have gone the other way here, because the jury did acquit him of the racketeering and the sex trafficking counts, which would involve alleged acts of violence. And the jury found that he wasn't guilty of any of that. He was just found guilty of transporting individuals across state lines to engage in prostitution. So what is his risk to the community on that? The problem is, I think Cassie Ventura's letter might have had an effect on the judge. The judge feels that he needs to protect the community from Sean Combs. But in the end, Sean Combs might not get that steep of a sentence out of his conviction, and he'll eventually be released from jail with credit for the 10 months he's already done in, and he'll be back out in the community after the case. I can't imagine a defendant who's just gone through a trial like Sean Combs went through, where everything that happened behind closed doors was now exposed to the nation, and it was a heinous exposure, that he wouldn't be on best behavior, not even to get a traffic infraction, if he was released on bail. So I'm a little bit surprised that the judge didn't give him some leeway.
Again, I am just utterly shocked.
So now,
I am just floored. I am flabbergasted. I am just, how? I mean, I'm hearing this in the same and I am reacting to it the same exact way that I am seeing the AfD come to prominence in Germany and autocracy coming home to roost in America. It's like, how are these things happening? How? How is he not getting the death penalty for all the shit he did? How is the AfD not being dismantled unilaterally for being Nazis? How is Trump, being an autocrat, not triggering something to happen from the military, from Congress, from the Supreme Court, from the U.S. Marshals, from something to remove him? How is every institution and every government and every agency and every process that exists globally failing to prevent the very atrocities they were built to prevent? They clearly weren't built to prevent them, because the system does exactly what it does. A system is designed to do what it does. And If the system allows you to have an autocratic president, then that's what that system was there for. Maybe not intended to, but that's what it's there. That's what it's doing. If the criminal justice system is meant to put away monsters like Sean Combs, and it doesn't, then that's what it's designed to do. Same thing with the Nazis in Germany. He's definitely going to be friends with him now. They're going to be best pals. He's probably going to be the new head of Doge. Fuck. Damn, I need a stiffer drink. Let me tell you right now. Water ain't strong enough.
To Tennessee now, where new immigration laws take the crackdown a step further.
Isn't this already the case? Like what?
For anyone who provides shelter to an undocumented immigrant. The American Immigration Council says they make it illegal for a church to offer temporary shelter,
a
landlord to rent out a room, or a family member to live with someone who is undocumented. So CBS News correspondent Nicole Valdez is live in Nashville. So Nicole, why don't you walk us through these new laws and what it means for people who live in Tennessee?
Julie, good evening. Well, many of the undocumented immigrants living in the state fear they could find it harder to find a place to live. It's why several immigration advocacy groups are in fact now suing against at least one of those laws, hoping to block it from its enforcement, which is set to start tomorrow, arguing it could put not only landlords but churches and even family members at risk of prosecution if they simply help them look for a place to live here. The bill defines someone who is harboring an undocumented person as anyone who's providing shelter for financial benefit. So that could mean, as you mentioned, renting out room to them or letting them live in their home. The groups suing really argue that the law is far too broad and could target those who are trying to help immigrants who may have come to the U.S. illegally at first, but who may now have earned legal status here.
What reactions are you seeing and are you getting in the community? What are people telling you?
Well, clearly a lot of people find this to be a very controversial law here. This is, in fact, one of several new laws that will take effect tomorrow in this state, and others are just as much being discussed here, and that include, in fact, criminalizing certain elected officials if they choose to vote to make a city or a community here part of a sanctuary here. Any local leader.
Okay, again. Just because something is legal or illegal doesn't make it morally or ethically wrong or excuse you of your moral or ethical responsibility to disobey, okay? Slavery was legal. Nazism was legal. Segregation was legal. Denying women the right to vote was legal. Women could not open a bank account on their own until 1975. Divorce was largely illegal in America until also around that same time frame. Being queer was illegal until effectively illegal. Okay, I'm sorry. You couldn't marry. Let's just stick to that one. You couldn't have gay marriage until 2012, and that's already being challenged. And now it's illegal to make sure that people have a place to live and survive and not be kidnapped and trafficked? No, you have a moral obligation and a duty to stop that shit. Call your fucking legislator, your congressperson, your mayor, your councilman, your goddamn sheriff. Bombard them. Fight back, America. What are you fucking doing? Fight back. I remember when they passed the law that you could get fined $5,000 or go to jail for having an undocumented immigrant in your car. I was like, am I supposed to ask people for their papers before I give them a ride home? Evidently, you need to be doing the work of the Gestapo for the Gestapo without the Gestapo being anywhere near you.
In the state of Tennessee who chooses to vote for a sanctuary policy really in any city could be charged with a Class E felony, all while a new agency focused on immigration will soon be formed here. The state's official Centralized Immigration Enforcement Division will be enacted tomorrow, and it plans to allocate state.
You know what would be really ridiculous, though? Okay, so it's illegal to harbor an illegal immigrant now, right? It's illegal. You can't even give people a ride, right? Okay. So what happens when there's a bunch of illegal immigrants in the unmarked van of the unmarked, unbadged, undeclared agent? Can you just immediately pull them over and charge them? Like, hey, 911, I just saw this vehicle drive away with illegal immigrants. They are harboring and moving them across God knows where. They might be taking them over state lines. Like, we can fight back and be petty motherfuckers about this thing, right? We can make their lives so miserable to force them to admit who they are, for one, which then makes it harder for them to act, for two, which then gives the community more power to interfere. 3, America, you need to dig deep into your revolutionary, although I guess technically it's colonist, roots and fight back against oppression. Just fight. Do something.
Sources to local agencies to ensure that they're cooperating and assisting federal authorities in immigration enforcement. It will also provide incentives for local police departments, for example, to enter into those 287G programs that grant officers certain powers in assisting with deportations of anyone suspected of being in the country illegally. Another highly debated issue that both sides of the aisle have strong opinions on.
The laws passed by our state legislature prove Tennessee continues to be the tip of the spear for the rights of our communities and the future of our multiracial democracy.
Even if you disagree, the law is the law, and President Trump and his immigration enforcement officials, including Border Czar Tom.
Where was the law is the law when the law was to wear a mask and to stay home and raise minimum wages and legalize gay marriage and desegregate and end slavery? I mean, the law is the law is only used when it's for authoritarian purposes. The law's the law. You better fucking follow it, because now we're in charge, motherfucker, and we're going to use violence because we want this law to be the law. Anytime the law inconveniences you or is counter to whatever you believe in, the law is filthy fucking democratic liberal bullshit. Unfucking believable.
Holman have made it very clear they are going to come into our communities in our state, and we want to make
you
sure
could
that
stop
we're all
them.
cooperating with their efforts.
You fucking coward. You bald-headed motherfucker.
Now, we'll see where that lawsuit challenging at least that first law we talked about goes, but clearly for now, a very contentious issue here, and some arguing that the state of Tennessee may in fact be trying to regulate a federal issue here in one state. Julie.
This is the part that also kills me. This isn't a controversial issue. It is an issue that violates the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 14th, the 15th, the 9th, the 1st, the 2nd, and is getting dangerously close to violating the 3rd, which we have never even came close to having an issue with, because we've never had war happen on our soil other than the Civil War, and harboring soldiers during the Civil War, it wasn't even something that was considered, because it was like, yeah, sure, absolutely, you're on our side, we're on your side, let's go, let's take over, like, here's my mansion, or here's my hovel, right? But now we're getting to the point where ICE agents can just come into your home and be like, well, the illegal ain't here yet, but I'm getting a little tired, so I'm just gonna, like, we're getting to the point where, like, every single part of the Constitution is being violated to pursue this masked police force bullshit. It's not controversial. It's unconstitutional. Do your fucking job. Say it, you fucking coward. Nicole Valdez, It is unconstitutional. Say it with me. Unconstitutional. You fucking coward. And that's the thing. The laws serve those in power. But honestly, they don't care about the law unless it increases or enables their power. That's the thing. Because all they want is autocracy. All they want is the authority. All they want is to expand their influence and power. Any law that actually helps poor people or society grow, they don't want. They don't want to follow those laws. They don't. Medicaid is a law. Social Security is a law. USAID is a law. Education support is a law. SNAP is a law. Like, here's every single social program that they just gutted was a law enacted and passed by Congress and signed by a president. Those were all laws. The law is Social Security. The law is Medicaid. The law is the various agencies and their oversight over their agency. They don't give a shit about that. They give a shit about giving money to these paramilitary groups that we can use and control unilaterally to intimidate, coerce, or subjugate the people. It really is. Yes. Every federal agency that exists has to be approved legislatively by Congress through legislation to be codified into law. They can only exist through the codification of law in the judicial process. I think that's Article 1, somewhere in there. Legislative authority to create federal agencies. Article 2, Section 2, 3.6. Or hold on. Let's let it load real quick. Why are you lagging on me? I have fiber internet here, motherfucker. Let's go. That's the okay. Creation of federal offices is Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. The Constitution gives substantial power to establish federal government offices. As an initial matter, the Constitution vests the legislative power in Congress. Article 1 bestows on Congress certain specified and enumerated powers. The court has recognized that these powers are supplemented by the necessary and proper clause, which provides Congress with broad power to enact laws that are convenient or useful or conducive to the beneficial exercise of its more specific authorities. The Appointments Clause supplies the method of appointment for certain specified officials, but also for other officers whose positions are established by law, although principal officers must be nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate. Congress may, by law, place the appointing power for inferior officers with the President alone, a department head, or a court. As this section will explain, the Supreme Court has recognized Congress's discretion to establish a wide variety of governmental entities in the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. So by the very language within the Constitution, it is a matter of law that a state or federal agency is in existence.
All right, Nicole Valdez. Nicole, thank you.
Extra absorbent.
Which, again, that means, that literally means all of that liberal bullshit is the fucking law. But when it comes to that, the law is whatever we say it is, and we're going to get rid of it. All right, so we still got 30 minutes left. I know it's kind of silly only having 30 minutes left, but I've been drinking a lot. So, water. I've been drinking water. So, let's do a quick break.
Coors Light presents To Chill or Not to Chill. When your friend skips your favorite song on the playlist. End the friendship. Or choose chill because that song lives rent-free in your head anyway. And you planned ahead by bringing Coors Light to the party. And the sound of that ice-cold can cracking open was music to your ears already. Coors Light. Choose chill. Celebrate responsibly. 2024 Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Lowe's knows July 4th savings are worth celebrating. Right now, get up to 40% off select major appliances and get an additional 10% off 2 or more select major appliances. Plus, get 3 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. These deals are coming in hot. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 7/9. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month.
All right. I'm back. Thank you for that quick little reprieve. What happens in 30 minutes? At the rate shit has been going, probably World War fucking 3. I mean, holy fucking Christ. I'm actually kind of shocked that you don't see like boots coming through these windows with half the shit I've been saying. But who knows, right? Here in Berlin. Oh, fuck. Edelhose. Du bist Deutscher? Also, wie schlimm ist es in Deutschland gratis mit die AfD? Ist es so schlimm, wie wir haben gesagt vorher? Oder ist es nicht so schlecht, wie ich habe es vorher gesagt? Und ich weiß, dass mein Deutsch ist sehr englisch, amerikanisch. Ah, okay, genau, danke. Ja, ich hätte gedacht, es war so schlimm, aber das war, ja, ich hätte gehofft, dass es war nicht so schlimm. Anywho, I clearly need to start speaking German more often because I sound like a goddamn foreigner. I sound like an American who just learned Germany 101. How do you say Auf Wiedersehen? Jesus Christ. Anyway, it is bad. More and more people like AFD, even the migrants. Yeah, that's the part that always kills me is that how are you going to be brown in this country, in America, and then vote for Trump when he is literally saying that he wants you out of his country and has decades of history behind him of fucking you and people like you? Same thing in Germany. Like, bro, why would you clap for the Nazis if you are the target of the I don't get that. I don't get that at all. I do not understand that. And now they're saying that they were used. Yes, they were. Just like the Jews were used by Nazis. During their rise to power. Like the Jews voted for Hitler too. Like let's be honest here. It's ridiculous. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. Outside of my bubble, it's hard to find people who not vote for them. No, like, here's the thing. I'm in Ohio of the United States. Ohio used to be very purple. Like, it could be Democrat one year, Republican the next year. It could be Democrat and Republican with a nice, happy split. But we are blood fucking red now. We are Trump country. And I work with transphobes. I work with homophobes. I work with outright hard R racists. Okay? Like, I'm not making this shit up. And this is every warehouse, every factory in Ohio. And it's worse the more rural you are. And I'm in fucking Columbus, where there is diversity. Yeah, Anna, congratulations. But here's the problem, too. It's not like there isn't ridiculous conservatism going on in New York, because how many votes did Cuomo get? Half of New York is pro-fascist, as long as it's blue. As long as it's blue, they're pro-fascist, but it's still fascist. There is no part in America that is a majority progressive, that is truly progressive, that truly holds the ideals that government should serve the needs of the people first and foremost. And if that means taxing the shit out of everybody and that billionaires don't exist, so be it, right? Nowhere in America is that the majority. And yes, fascism is escalating the situation. It's insane. Tylo Sorokos. That almost has like a Greek Tyler Sorokos name to it. Thank you for the follow. Let's see.
Being a nurse means being focused on others.
Is this in America?
At Post University, our advanced nursing degree.
Oh, goody. A 15-second unskippable ad. Love those. Oh, that's right. Texas just did propose the bill to where you can't even post shit about that. Yep.
Website by saying this is what I...
2 unskippable ads. Oh, okay.
Scary government censorship of online speech, and it jeopardizes public access to vital healthcare information. But also, like, we just shouldn't have a government that censors what we say online.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my new YouTube series, Free Speech Friday.
Okay.
Right now, free speech is under attack. Across the country, states and federal lawmakers are trying to pass sweeping, draconian censorship laws. The internet is powerful because of how it democratizes speech. It gives everyone a voice and allows anyone to build a platform.
Now, to be clear, that is good. That is true. It democratizes our voice. Everybody gets a platform, yours truly included. However, not all speech deserves and should be entitled to a platform, i.e., specifically and especially the kind of rhetoric that comes out of the mouth of the AFD, of MAGA, of Trump, of alt-white, ultra-nationalistic, all this other bullshit that radicalizes people. None of that should be given a platform, because that is literally endangering populations and is literally causing the kidnap and trafficking of brown people in America, even if they are citizens. That rhetoric, that speech, and that platform is literally causing the widespread violation of the 14th Amendment rights of actual U.S. citizens and actual human beings who have a right to be here. And even the ones that are here illegally are still protected by the Constitution because it is inalienable rights. But because of that hate speech and the platform that the internet has provided, this shit is now happening. So, yes, ma'am, you are correct, but there should be limitations. There should be limitations to free speech, and that free speech should be limited is speech that threatens the ability of individuals or implies that individuals no longer have agency over their own actions or livelihood or existence.
Especially to challenge power. As I wrote in my book, Extremely Online, it's because of this power shift that we're seeing a record assault on online speech rights. The mainstream media is asleep at the wheel. They cheer on bad legislation and push moral panic narratives and manufactured outrage
because
campaigns
it's owned by
that
the
are then used to justify stripping our civil liberties on the internet. I believe that the aggressive assault on free speech online is one of the most important issues of our time. So every week on Free Speech Friday, I'll be talking to the people on the front lines of the fight for free speech on the internet. This includes constitutional lawyers, digital rights activists, tech policy experts, and more. I'll be breaking down bad legislation, exposing the power players behind these attacks, and giving you ways to fight for the right to speak freely. I know tech policy can be kind of a snooze, but these laws are so incredibly important, and I really hope that I can convince you guys to care about them. Anyway, this week's Free Speech Friday is actually coming on a Tuesday because the bill that I want to talk to you about is so dangerous and bad, and it's being voted on this week in the Texas legislature. It's called HB 5510, and it's a proposed law in Texas that aims to criminalize discussing abortion online. This means criminalizing speech about abortion in emails, on websites, in social media posts, and even private messages. The proposed...
So you can't even text about abortion. Like, you can't even debate abortion through a text or social media. Like, you cannot... Like, if this passes... First of all, if I were in Texas, we couldn't stream and talk about abortion as a debate topic. That's what this is saying. That is how draconian it is, that you can't even utter the word. It's like how I moderate our chat so you can't use the N-word or, other shit like that, right? That's what this would do, except instead of censoring the N-word, it would censor the word abortion. and you could have legal consequences for it. Legal consequences. That's insane.
So dangerous for so many reasons that we're going to get into today. And to help me break it all down, I have here with me Jennifer Pinsoff, senior staff attorney at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a nonprofit that fights for digital civil liberties. She's been tracking this bill and sounding the alarm on what it could mean for free speech online. Jennifer, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Taylor.
Okay, so first of all, I want to start off, of course, before we begin by saying nothing that you say here on this episode is legal advice. You are a lawyer, but you're just helping us break down this crazy bill. Can you tell me a little bit about what is in this bill? How does it work and what does it do?
This is another attempt of Texas legislators to try and stop access to abortion pills, which is the most commonly used safe and effective means of abortion today, especially in states like Texas that have banned access to abortion. One way that they're doing this in this bill is to try to control the information that Texas residents have access to online, right? So if you can't find information about abortion pills online, you can't order them, you can't learn about them, you might not even know they're an option, you might not know they exist. So the goal is to wipe this information from the internet, and in doing so, to silence the people that are trying to provide truthful and factual information.
The shit that we accuse North Korea of doing and Russia of doing to their people, Texas is attempting to do to Texans. Just to be very fucking clear on that.
About reproductive options.
And how does that work in practice with this bill? How would it restrict access to information and speech about abortion pills online?
So it's 43 pages and it's incredibly broad and confusing. I don't recommend reading it. It was not fun reading material. First, it goes after online speakers who create or post content online. Like, kind of the operative provision is that it makes it illegal to just provide information about abortion-inducing drugs. There's several other provisions that prohibit different kinds of speech, and it's really so broad it can be interpreted to prohibit just about every way you can share information online. So whether you're posting on social media, communicating via email or message, creating a website.
Like, first of all, in order to even enforce the email traffic, that would mean they'd have to be able to track all email traffic in the state of Texas, or email traffic that engages with somebody from Texas, even if it's leaving Texas. The amount of surveillance that would involve would be multi-billion dollars worth of infrastructure and violating privacy on a scale that we do not want to even consider. Considering that this phone is already listening to me, I could shut the... In fact, that phone over there is out of juice. It has 0% battery, and it still has the capability of listening. Like, do you realize how fucked we are? I don't have the audio on this camera. That's being recorded. That can be... Do you know that they can track you out from your Wi-Fi signals? Like, these are things that exist on a military espionage intelligence level, right? Now imagine taking the very isolated minutia capabilities of technological surveillance and espionage and expand that entire infrastructure to be a dragnet across an entire state whose population is what? 30 million? Well, I mean, I don't know how many people live in Texas. Let's be honest. How many people live in Texas? Oh, it was 30 million. 31.3 million. So now you have a dragnet of 31 million Texans who are going to have their texts, their social media, their emails, their Google search engines, all of it going through a filter that is controlled by Texas. Like, I can't even begin to kind of tell you, like, this is the, like, Minority Report levels of shit going on. Stop animal murder and torture. Thank you for the follow. Looks like we have an ally here. Awesome.
Or blog all of that kind of falls under the umbrella of what they could be prohibiting here. And then in addition to covering like a really wide range of speech online, it doesn't just go after the online speakers themselves, but it also targets basically every entity involved in making the content available online. So if I write a post, it's not just me that could be covered by the bill. It also covers the social media platform that I post on. It could cover the website owner.
All right. So that's what we just said anyway. So free puff now? No. First of all, no. Why the fuck would you even say that? And in the same sentence say, go after the war criminals who are former presidents. The fuck? I actually kind of wanted to hear their justification, but fuck them. Like, what? Why would you? How? What logical gymnastics, mental gymnastics would you have to do to be like, P. Diddy did nothing wrong, but go after the former presidents? What? In what universe does that even make sense? And then you're like a pro PETA person or something? Like, you're a dumb motherfucker. Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. I guess I had like a brief moment of like, what is even your, like, what screw in your brain is loose that you would even utter those words? Like
the service that hosts the website on its servers.
But hey, we got a troll today.
The messaging app that
we
I'm
must be doing
messaging on
something
could
right.
be potentially liable. Email service. So it really goes down the line of all the online services that are helping to make this content available to people in the state of Texas. They can be sued if they allow a Texas resident to access information that helps get an abortion.
Okay.
Now, that would be kind of funny if Texas went after Facebook because a Texan talked about abortion. That would be fucking hilarious if Texas tried to execute Zuckerberg for allowing a Texan to talk about abortion on Facebook. That would be hilarious.
Okay, let's back up and start with just the first part of what you said about how it targets anybody that's providing information or speaking online about these things. How does it go about finding who's speaking online? Like, if I'm messaging a friend about abortion pills, could that potentially be regulated under this law?
I didn't realize that was the trendy thing to do today.
It's one of the most interesting parts of the bill. It's structured as a bounty law. So what that means is the enforcers of the law are private citizens. Basically gives the ability of any average citizen who sees this information being posted online, who receives a message, that private citizen can basically sue anyone posting this content, take them to court, and maybe win a pretty big reward. Minimum per each violation is $100,000.
Wow.
We can go in.
Are you fucking kidding me? So let's make people poor and desperate. If racism doesn't work and anti-Semitism doesn't work and war doesn't work and fear-mongering of migrants doesn't work, we can at least incentivize them to talk about abortion. And then if they do, that they can get a $100,000 fucking bounty. Fuck, I'll report the chuds for $100,000. Holy shit. Like, I wouldn't see, this is how I would do it though. The person who's posting the pro-abortion, I'd leave them alone. But then when you got the racist motherfucker and the misogynist talking about, you bitches can't get abortions anymore, I'm going to report that motherfucker. And it's going to be the same thing because he said the word abortion. So fuck you. And I'm going to get my $100,000. But that's insane. Like, the entire Texas court system is going to get bogged down with these $100,000 bounties, and it's going to bankrupt the state. It's going to be insane.
To why it's structured this way, and there's a lot of kind of questionable reasons for doing it this way, but yeah, so it's like a bounty law that kind of empowers anyone to go sue anyone.
$100,000 is a huge amount of money. So this bill essentially incentivizes other people to narc on each other, right? To like go around and say, ooh, I heard that this person was talking about abortion, or I saw this person said something here and I'm going to report them, sue them, and get this huge payout. It kind of deputizes the public to almost surveil each other in a way that is far more comprehensive than the government could even imagine.
That's definitely true. And one of the effects of this is that there's this like big looming threat of litigation, right? So there's this huge motivation for, bounty hunters or these private citizens to find people and take them to court. So there's this threat of litigation that's looming over people, and that is intended to and will chill the speech, right? If you know that anyone can narc on you and you could potentially be dragged into court and have to defend a lawsuit, then you're less likely to provide this crucial healthcare information.
I mean, you could exchange an email or have an online discussion about abortion, and maybe the person that you are chatting with forwards that email or screenshots that text, or you make a social media post and suddenly you could be liable.
That's true. And in addition to that, it could also just be a stranger. Normally in lawsuits, the plaintiff, the person bringing the lawsuit, has to be like directly harmed and affected. In this situation with the bounty law, it could be a random stranger who has no relation to the person posting or the service that's involved, and they're not really experiencing direct harm in the way that we typically think about what it means to be harmed. So it really opens up who can get into court.
Basically, anybody can sue you, right? Under this law.
Anyone can sue you except the government. Right. So that's another one of it's another feature of the bounty law that's like why it was chosen pretty intentionally, is that when you don't have a government entity in charge of enforcement, I don't want to get like too technical, but it basically makes it harder to challenge the law in court.
Exactly, because it's people policing each other, not the government technically policing everyone else. What if I'm a journalist and I create a website, like a news website or something that shares information about legal abortion services online, and I'm not emailing or texting it to anyone, it's just my own website?
Yeah, given how broadly the bill is drafted, you could definitely be held liable for that activity under this law. And not just you. If you're the owner of the website, it also could be the person hosting the website on their servers. A lot of activity falls under the scope of this bill,
which violates the First Amendment. Like, let's just backtrack here, okay? This is I don't even like this is I don't even know how to truly address the horror I just heard, but by criminalizing and incentivizing a humongous payout for people to police one another, and to have such a broad definition of what that could be, and also who could do the policing, you are no longer actually able to exercise your right to free speech. And again, if we're not talking about racism or threatening to kill Governor Abbott or lynching somebody, right? Like that, of course, they'll protect that all day long, right? But we're just talking about providing medical information like, oh, this is an interesting article that I read about Chinese abortion pills. Post. You can now be sued by literally anybody. You can put it on your website and be sued by literally anybody within the state of Texas, as long as you're a resident of Texas or something along those lines. Something like that. Which means you can't even have like a mild interest in that medical aspect. Would not even have a political saying. It's like, oh, wow, look at this medical breakthrough in Italy to deal with abortion or ectopic pregnancies. You can be bountied for $100,000. And probably some actual criminal suits to go along with that. Yes, that person will get the bounty. You'll be liable for it. But what's the liability? You're not paying the $100,000. The state is, right? Because you don't have $100,000. How would you even be able to pay that, right? So I think they didn't think that part through. But the second part they didn't think through is like, you're just going to criminalize an entire block of people. And what you're going to have to build more prisons to put more people in. Oh, but wait, we can build a 3,000 person prison concentration camp in 8 days. And we could have done it faster if there weren't so many state regulations about building requirements. Do you see where this is going? I don't. Like, I saw where it was going before, like, just by reading the fucking headline, right? That's. Do I need to spell it out? Like, the more laws that are created to criminalize normal activity, the more criminalized the population becomes, the easier it is to subjugate them, because now they are all criminals and you can use more force, violence, and intimidation against them to keep them in line. And if they don't stay in line, well, guess what? You can force them into prison camps, and now you don't have to worry about your labor shortage from having a bunch of people in prison and not participating in the economy and workforce. You now have free prison labor, i.e. slaves, that you can utilize for all industries. And they don't have workers' protected rights. They don't have workers' protected abilities to address concerns. You don't have to pay them. You damn near don't have to feed them. Do you see where this is going? Quickly. In real time. We are seeing it. The migrants are being fined $1,000 a day for being here. They are being sent to the detention centers, and those detention centers are being used for free slave labor. Now we're criminalizing Americans for talking about shit that they should have every right to talk about, covered by free speech. If the KKK can march and if the Nazis can march, surely somebody should be able to talk about abortion pills. But even then, we are criminalizing protesting and everything else, right? So we are criminalizing more and more and more actions of free speech, of freedom, of addressing grievances with our government. So we're criminalizing the very freedom that we allegedly espouse to have, land of the free, home of the brave, and expanding our military, prison, police complex do I need to go further to that? A plus B equals C. Like, let's just 1 to 2 to 3. Like, this is a straight fucking line. This has been a straight line since, I mean, arguably, we can say Reagan, Nixon. It's been a straight line since Nixon. And or maybe it was like parabolic or logarithmic, right? Still, that straight line is just heading towards fascism. And the acceleration is happening now. Unbelievable.
I want to dig into that last part that you said in your first answer, which is what you just brought up again here. It's not just even the speaker that's targeted, it's also the platforms, right? And the email services or the social media platforms that are hosting this content. What effect do you think that will have on these service providers and their willingness to host this type of content?
We already know that online services like social media platforms and websites, they often over-censor as it
right,
is
they're
because
not even
they're
pretending
worried about
anymore.
being liable for users' posts. There's not really a big motivation for platforms to defend the First Amendment rights of their users. And anytime you subject them to potential legal liability, that's just going to tip the scales further in favor of over-censorship of the information.
Yeah, and it seems like it's coming at a time as well when platforms are already censoring so much reproductive justice content and information about abortion. I mean, it's already hard enough on some of these social platforms to find that information. It seems like this law is just designed to further incentivize social platforms and service providers and things to take down abortion-related content.
Yes, definitely. There's a couple different mechanisms that they're employing here to kind of push platforms to take down this information and to over censor it. So first, for example, if I'm a platform and I get sued under this law, I get sued because there's a post on my social media platform that, is problematic content according to these legislators, then I can escape liability if I can show that once I learned that this content was on my platform, I promptly blocked access to the abortion-related information. So that's an affirmative defense to help you get out of liability.
So basically, you can be shielded from liability if you find out about abortion-related content and take it down immediately. This seems like it would incentivize the platforms to just take down anything that might be abortion-related because they have to take action immediately if they want to be shielded from liability.
Yeah, exactly. And it also grants absolute immunity.
What does that mean?
If I'm a platform and I took down your content and then you sue me because maybe I deny you service or I take down your content or, shadow ban or whatever it is, if you sue me, the platforms have complete immunity against those claims. So any claim based on the restriction of access to this information.
That seems crazy. So you can't even, the person who has their content taken down can't even sue. That seems against what so many conservatives have been ranting about for years, which is that they feel like their content has been restricted and censored and shadow banned, and all they want is to kind of sue these platforms and make sure that their speech is hosted. However, in this case, it seems like they're sort of achieving the opposite.
To be completely honest, you only have First Amendment rights against the government. A user can't bring a First Amendment claim directly against a platform anyways. So, you're reading this, you're like, why are they granting absolute immunity here? It really, in my opinion, is just so that these companies feel really empowered and feel not at all afraid of legal liability, and so that they just over-censor this.
So we are drawing to our 10 o'clock timeline here. So I love this content creator. She's a journalist, so let's be very clear. She's not a content creator. I apologize, Taylor. I apologize. I just inadvertently smeared you. You are a journalist who has journalistic integrity and left your MSM job to become a content creator using your journalistic skills to provide this much needed information to the masses. So absolute fucking hero, right? But again, how she was saying to, you know, obviously to get the conversation going more, is that conservatives, you know, fought tooth and nail to be platformed. And then the lawyer's like, well, you can't actually sue a platform for First Amendment violations because that's only protected against the government, which just goes to show again that like some speech should not be protected and should not be platformed. And some of these platforms have already kind of came to that same conclusion. But now you have governments passing laws to weaponize that fact. And again, you're criminalizing medicine, right? But that's not even the point that I was trying to make. That's just what you get hung up on, because again, you get hung up on what's right here in front of you. They're trying to ban abortion and they're criminalizing it, making it a bounty and making it easier for platforms to remove, right? That's what they're talking about. But the actual thing that is happening is right here. And what that is a violation of your First Amendment right to free speech, access to healthcare, access to all these things, basically not being controlled and subjugated by your government, right? The whole premise of the Constitution, right? The intent of the Constitution, although not always how it's been carried out, and definitely not how it's always been interpreted, is to prevent an oppressive government from dictating things to you. What you can think, what you can say, how to say it, when to think it, how to say it, right? These are specifically why the First Amendment exists. So the government can't dictate to you what you can or cannot say or do. And now we have the Texas government saying you cannot do or say anything about abortion. That is the problem that directly violates the First Amendment. Irrespective of whether or not it is protected on the platform, that's not even the point. It's not even the point that they're banning abortion or access to information on the abortion, or that it's abortion specifically. None of that matters. It's the fact that they did at all the attempt, that it is written in a bill to be voted on, and it is likely to pass. That is the problem. And that existing fact intrinsically violates the First Amendment. That violates the First Amendment because it is a government body dictating what can or cannot be considered free speech. Even though hate speech exists, even though you can go to prison for threatening to kill a government official, like there's still inciting of violence and threatening and all this other shit, right? Like there is still speech that is federally mandated as illegal and is a felony, and you will go to prison for it, right? Like there is still that definition. And now we're adding medical processes to that. What's next? If I'm not Christian, if I am not supporting our Lord and Savior Jesus H. Christ and them there 10 commandments, hee-haw, because that is not an unreasonable expectation of where they go from this point. Oh, you don't support Donald Trump? That's already preventing people from coming to the country. Our authoritarianism, our autocracy is so pervasive, that we, the United States of America, are actually censoring foreign societies and their populations. We are censoring them and their entire social media history. Meaning, if you're German and you're like, I'm pro-abortion and Trump is a fucking idiot and you want to visit America, or your family who's in America, they can deny you entry for 5 or 10 years because you didn't delete that post. So if you want to visit your family in America, or Guam or Puerto Rico, you have to censor yourself, even if your country, Germany, allows you to besmirch Trump, which it does, and to talk about abortion, which it does. If you do that, and you have any designs whatsoever of coming to America, you have to now censor yourself, even though in your country it's not a problem, but you're trying to go to this country who will censor you. Do you see how pervasive this gets and how broadly this expands? And it needs to be stopped. We need to be the ones to put an end to it. And we do that through civil disobedience. Contact your fucking elected officials on the hour, every hour. Send them 1,000 emails. You know you can auto send emails. You can auto send emails. Gmail lets you do it. Outlook lets you do it. It lets you schedule shit. Bombard their social media inboxes on Twitter, Instagram, Truth Social, Facebook, LinkedIn. Y'all, we have the social media. We have the internet. We also have 330 million of us versus the 813 pulling the strings behind the 535. So, in closing, my fellow Americans, thank you for coming and watching. This has been another refreshing stream on global affairs and domestic policies, and how we're heading to hell in a handbasket with great alacrity because there's so much shit going on. We don't actually know where to direct our focus or attention, and we don't actually have trustworthy leadership to direct us. So I'm trying to fill that void. See you tomorrow when we do even more recap, because we still didn't even cover all the shit that has happened this week. And with that, have a lovely evening. Have a nice cup of tea. Read a little chapter of your book. Watch a nice little anime. And we will see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. President out.